Okay. Welcome to the Asheville City Council meeting, everybody. We're live. Yeah, okay. All right, well, very enthusiastic crowd tonight, thank you. So everyone just take a moment and silence your cell phones. And make sure if you want to speak on an item on the agenda, sign up out in the hall with Jerry. She's in there, and we have a spreadsheet that populates during the meeting so we can see your name pop up. If you haven't signed up in 30 minutes into the meeting, you decide to sign up, you can just go on out there and sign up, and we will know you're on the list. So please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we do not have any proclamations this evening. So we're going to begin with the consent agenda. I have just been notified that Councilwoman Roney would like to pull items H through K to be voted on separately. So can I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda? Well, wait, let me just say this. Does anyone else have an item they want removed from the? Okay, so.
Well, since they have to be unanimous, I have to pull the appointment one too.
Say it again?
The appointment one, is it P?
Oh, to pull
Yeah.
P?
Yeah.
The council meeting
I think
schedule?
Q.
Q, okay.
Sorry, Mike.
Okay, so we're pulling items to be voted on. Do you want to vote on them separately, or do you just want to ask some questions?
Vote on separately.
Separately, okay. So for H, I, J, K, and Q, so do I have a motion to adopt the remaining items on the consent agenda?
This is Sage, I'll move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We do have a number of people signed up to speak, but I have a feeling it's not on those items. It's going to be on the next items. So I'm going to take public comment after we do the next part. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Before we do that, then I have a comment on item C.
Okay, sorry.
For item C, this is the resolution authorizing the city manager to accept grant funds from the Golden Leaf Foundation for Swannanoa River Road flood mitigation and damage reduction. And I just wanted to point out the appreciation for staff on the study. I think this is really important work. But also I wanted to acknowledge the Oakley Neighborhood Association, who's been hosting events like the Open Streets events, helping us to imagine how this road could not only be safer for all modes of transportation, not just for the Swannanoa River corridor, but also connected streets like Thompson.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So I'm just trying to think about how to do the rest of this. I assume we need separate votes then on H 1 and 2, I 1 and 2. I can do H 1 and 2 together. I 1
You
and 2.
can, Mayor. Well, they are separate budget amendments, so you really should vote on those separately. They are separate ordinances.
You're
But
saying H1 and H2, or are you saying HIJ?
a single vote for H1 and, well, as H1 and then a vote for H2.
Okay. All right, so I'm just trying to decide here where we're going to take public comment because we've got folks that have signed up here, and then it's going to take us a little bit to get through all of these. So here's what, we'll just start with the first one, and then I think we'll take public comment. I do want to explain that for the last item, Q, which is the committee assignments and liaison positions for council members, that although the entire list is attached to our agenda, the only committee assignments that the council needs to vote on is to appoint Maggie Ullman to the MPO, Sage Turner to the Audit Committee, and Maggie Ullman to CPAC. So otherwise, the rest of those committee assignments are at my discretion and do not need to be, and nor are they voted on typically by council. So I just wanted to explain that for purposes of our voting tonight. So with that, and we're going to go through each of these, but with that, first, do I have a motion to approve H1, resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for and accept grant funds from the U.S. Department of Justice for the 2022 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant?
So moved. Second, Sandra.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, and so now what we'll do is we'll take all the public comment on the consent agenda that anyone signed up for, and I will pull up the list. Okay, so when you speak, you'll have 3 minutes, and the lights on the lectern will be green means go, and that orange one means you're getting close to the end, and red and the buzzer means stop. And so please be mindful of that. We try to keep it to 3 minutes so that we can hear from everyone who signed up to speak. So the first person signed up to speak is Sheila Surratt. They're a little bit loud out there.
Hello.
Sheila, please pull the, yes,
Okay.
there you go.
Committee appoint, we don't need Kim Romney on the Environment Public Safety Committee. I don't feel safe with her at all on this committee. She votes against our APD, which is not safe for our community. We should not have a lot of crime for a city over 99,000 people. Our first responders matter. We have a DA that dismisses the charges, puts these people right back on the street, and repeat the crime over and over. I watched someone kick a hole in the window last week in a business downtown. I've watched many business owners, I've watched many people get assaulted in downtown Asheville. Our firefighters, I'd like to know what happened to the back pay that was promised to them. I was here in the room when it was promised to them. That was part of the pay plan that was approved in last year's budget. We need a safe community. What are you all gonna do to keep our community safe? Our first responders matter. They deserve better than what they are receiving from the city leaders. And if they need a safety vest, by God, give them that safety vest to protect them so they can protect us. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is Sandy Aldridge.
Hello, Council, Mayor. I'm a single female in Asheville, North Carolina, and I'm not safe in my city, and I know that. I carry multiple sources of protection for myself, which, if it was a different team over the safety, maybe it would be different. I don't believe in defunding the police. That is such an asinine thing to even come up with. But I'm also an advocate and an activist for all people. For the homeless, I'm on the transit committee for everyone, but we all need to be safe. We don't need to be scared to walk downtown, anywhere around downtown, or anything like that. And the people who are on meth or et cetera, do get arrested, and they are let right back out. Because I keep up with the inmates, and I watch, because I want to know what everybody's doing in my town. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you have an open seat next to you, can you raise your hand so we can get people to find the remaining seats? Okay, great, thanks. Honor Moore.
Respectfully, City Council, thank you for the decision to rotate Kim Roney off the newly combined Public Safety and Environment Committee. I've attended several public safety meetings, and it's clear that Kim didn't have interest in supporting any request from a beleaguered police department down by 42%. She votes no 99% of the time, and no twice to bulletproof vests. What a slap in the face this is to the police department. She's an elected protester versus a public servant willing to govern with balance. We also have a new council committee member, Maggie Ullman, who has the experience for the environmental portion of this new committee. As for this claim for lack of transparency, we are a city manager-driven city with Deborah Campbell, who comes with vast experience for the oversight of this department. We have 2 vice mayors, Shanika Smith and Sandra Kilgore, on this committee, and literally anyone can attend from the public. As for our Asheville Coalition for Public Safety, we continue to research the fallout of many cities with high attrition rates in their police departments. It is clear that we cannot ignore, punish, and disregard this city department any longer. No one wants to work where they are constantly maligned by the public. The APD has sort of defunded itself by sheer attrition. They have absorbed a long, calculated, community-organized effort to abolish them, driving a false narrative of the actual decision-making process in a chain of command within our city. Asheville has changed dramatically in the past 2 years. We are attracting an acute humanitarian crisis from other cities that has grown exponentially as our police department has shrunk. How do we address the problem of houseless people being given one-way bus tickets to Asheville? Can Asheville afford to absorb more and more people in our streets coming in from places like Morganton, Durham, and Winston-Salem? We have professional panhandling families exploiting children who are, when they're confronted, drive off in their new minivans. We continue to hear from business around Asheville of theft, people fighting in parking lots, and just Monday morning, a group of female runners were chased down by a man. Yesterday, an employee at Trader Joe's told me how he's tired of the homeless coming in and stealing while he works stocking the shelves. Can we recognize that we have big city challenges now? Our DA's office releases violent offenders with long records, and the police are forced to contend with them back in our streets. Must we frame everything in extremes and vilify one group in order to sacrifice a level of common sense? Can we not trust the people we elected to oversee this committee selection? I think we can. Please continue to support the Asheville Police Department. Thank you to our mayor, Deborah Campbell, and to our city council. You all have very important, tough jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Levin?
Thank you. I'm Todd Levin. I've lived in Asheville since probably mid-90s. I'm a local attorney and I live in Montford. I'm here on my own behalf. And I just want to come and really quickly say that I love Asheville. I love my neighborhood. I'm so glad I'm raising my children here. But lately, the crime has been increasing. And so I just really want you all to urge you, please try to look after our police department, support them. I did not touch that. Any bill that comes up where you can increase the safety or the pay of our police department, please do it. I have 2 young girls, and I really want them to love Asheville as much as I do, okay? I'm a little disappointed in some of you for your lack of support, and I hope that changes. And just be good people and protect our police. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that going to fall off of there? Anybody get eyeballs on that? Don't worry, it wasn't you. It happened in our earlier work session, too. It's off. I think it's off the thing. Well. Okay, somebody help Maggie do that. Yeah. Maybe we just can take it off or lay it down or, sorry. That's what was holding it up. It's like a bookend. Yeah, somebody's already.
Oh, we are fancy.
Okay. That seems, okay, I'm not.
There you go. That's it.
Yay, okay. Seems a little higher than normal, but, okay. Okay, David Rogers. Nobody touch the screen.
Council members, city manager, please support the Asheville Police Department more than you have in the past. Please give them the PPE that they need, such as bulletproof vests. When there are grant monies available to give the Asheville Police Department the tools that they need to go home safely to their families at the end of a shift, please do not vote against it. It's a slap in the face of the police. I know I'm saying the same thing as Honor, but it is a slap in the face of the police. I support, and many others of us, not taking the time to email you or show up tonight, support the Asheville Police Department and the mayor in making changes to the Public Safety Committee. Also, we need the DA to enforce the laws and not have a catch and release program. Please support the police by letting the district attorney know that we need and expect him to prosecute the criminals. Thank you for your service to the city and supporting the men and women of the Asheville Police Department.
Thank you. Cliff Feingold.
Good evening. I'm a little bit disappointed in hearing recently that City Council is spending $225,000 of our tax money on an advertising campaign for the Asheville Police Department. We don't suffer from a lack of advertising. I'm going to tell you how to fix it, and I'm not going to charge you a cent. You need to respect, honor, and support the police department. They get none of that from the present city council. How many of you, this is a rhetorical question, how many of you have ever called up the chief and said, Chief, let me buy you a cup of coffee, I want to come over and ask you what we can do for the police department in the city? Maybe all of you have done that, but I really don't think so. Another problem that I've seen in June of 2020, during time of unrest in Asheville, some criminals, people that defaced public property, in front of the police department, painted in bright red letters, defund the police. And the police never came out to stop this, or I understand that there was a lot of turmoil going on in the city at that time, and it may not have been safe. But the next day, you spent $18,000 of our taxpayer money to remove the graffiti on the street, defund the police. And my last point is this new committee, you've dissolved the Public Safety Committee, and the new committee is at least 9/10 on the environment and maybe 1/15 on public safety. I don't see that that's an improvement in public safety in our city.
Thank you. How do you feel about the monitor now? Is it going to hold?
Oh, it's good for me. It'll work.
And it won't slide off? You feel like, okay. Okay, that's good.
Thank you.
We just had our capital budget work session, so I feel like we're making a good point with that. Carol Dermott.
I come before council and the public as a registered Democrat. I admire your passion and that of your followers, Ms. Roney. I do. I am passionate too. But I see a city council public safety committee as being in a type of parent-child relationship with the police department. There have been countless times I have disagreed with my children's choices, where I have not just asked for, but demanded improvement in certain areas. That is and will always be not just okay, but necessary. But I have never thrown my children symbolically or virtually in front of an oncoming train to teach them a lesson. To vote, however symbolically, against a grant that provides bulletproof vests for our officers led me to stop seeing your role as that of a council member that was asking for accountability, and instead as one who lost sight of their purpose on the committee. A much more powerful move for me would have been to see you vote unequivocally yes to the vest and simultaneously make a statement about what you want to see changed going forward. I gotta admit, I paused when I read the Cole Pro Media Marketing. Their mission to create media content that would provide community building spin, for lack of a better word, can be taken at face value to be troubling. But why do we need a PR firm in police departments across this country? Because we have learned that the playbook has changed quickly and radically in the reporting of incidents to the media to even faster and more careless content. Spin is everywhere. Spin is never necessarily lying per se, but it's leaving out facts, editing quotes, phrasing content in a way that leads a predisposed public to immediate danger, anger, and indignation. It promotes a one-sided narrative that will never lead to consensus or resolution that benefits us, the public. So when you have an agenda that seeks to discredit the police whenever possible, and people that specialize in spin naturally on your side, you leave a police force whose job it is to serve and protect the community with a choice. Don't respond because they don't have resources, pull a person off duty to deal with the media and try and fill in missing context, or keep the officers doing what they are so minimally paid to do and hire a PR firm. Proposition, this is a renewable contract. Chief Zach is not required to renew it next year. So why don't we all spend this year working towards not needing it next year? Let's stop creating spin on either side of these issues. Let's commit to reporting the facts of every situation with complete integrity. And instead use our precious resources of time, intelligence, passion, and money to work together with compassion and a newfound absence of animosity to support the thing that we all want, a safer Asheville for our homeless, our police, and our community at large. Clearly it's not easy, or we'd already be doing it. But let's admit when we're wrong, point out when the opposition is right, and practice grace, and stop believing everything we read. Thank you.
Thank you. David Greenson.
All right, I'm not sure what I'm not supposed to touch here.
Don't touch the monitor.
Don't touch the monitor. Okay. Hey, Council. I want to quickly offer congratulations to Council members Mosley and Smith and Ullman and to the mayor for your electoral success last month. I want to speak to a couple of consent items as the person just before, the consent J. I personally don't understand why we need $162,000 for a PR firm, especially one that seems to specialize in obscuring the truth, even though it's called transparency engagement. And I don't understand why this kind of thing is on the consent agenda. It just feels like if y'all want to do that, it should be more of a discussion, because I think the last person was correct. This is an issue which people feel strongly about in different directions. I don't think the solution is just to try to slip it through. So I think we should be talking about these things. And ultimately, I think our problem is not really a PR problem when it comes to public safety. I think spin is not gonna solve this issue. The other thing I want to address is item Q, which is and I thanks to the Citizen Times today for their reporting. We now know that Chief Zach essentially thinks that Councilmember Roney adversely affects public safety. I guess one could say that she's a perceived threat to public safety, and to me, it's a very serious charge. This is somebody's a threat to public safety, and requires some explication. So what is the threat? And if that was a powerful force in Mayor Manheimer's decision not to put her on that committee, then does Mayor Manheimer also think that Councilmember Roney is a threat? I think these are very serious allegations. What is observable when you watch these meetings is that Councilwoman Roney can be a pain in the ass and can ask a lot of questions and can make people uncomfortable, right? And I understand not liking that. I mean, my partner sometimes will question me and query me about things, and I don't feel very supported. People have talked about how do we, the police don't feel supported. Everybody wants to feel supported, but sometimes support looks like people asking you hard questions. And so I feel like it's really essential that if there are a perception of threat from somebody, then it needs to be something that's actually articulated. It can't just be sort of an innuendo. And Chief Zach did not want to elaborate on how he perceives Councilmember Roney as a threat. So we're left to speculate. I feel like if this is really the issue, if that's the reason, then there should be some more explanation as to what the threat is. Because what's observable is mostly that she asks a lot of questions and she pushes back and she wants to know what the budget numbers are and things like that, which does not what seems like a threat to me, to public safety, is for that to be perceived as a threat that is a reason to have somebody not on a committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is Cade Walton. This is changing before my eyes.
Hi. That's a great segue, actually, because that's exactly what I want to talk about. I'm not here to say that our service members don't need bulletproof vests. I'm not here to say that they don't need to be safe, because they do, and I want them to be safe. I am here because I take issue with how money is allocated in our police force. Following on the heels of the person who came before me, we don't have racially equitable policing in Asheville. We just don't. That's what the data shows, and I know it because I've worked with that data myself, and that's where the contention comes from between the community and the police. Some of us believe this, that we don't have racially equitable policing, and some of us don't, and because of this disagreement, we're at odds with each other, and that's where I see this PR firm coming in to kind of smooth that over. But the fact is, we don't need that smoothed over. If that's not a fact, if it's not true, then we need to research that, and we need to have data that shows that it's not true. If it is true, and that is what the data shows, then we need to address that directly. We need to come up with solutions that produce data that does show that we will have or are on track to have racially equitable policing in Asheville. PR company won't solve that. It's also not going to build trust with the community because what it looks like is just covering things up. Taking actionable steps to improve things and having data that shows that things are in fact improving will build trust with the community, and that's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you. Grace Barron Martinez. You don't see the list? What is this? This.
It's despicable for us to spend an additional $162,000 of the people's money to fund propaganda PR firm Colpro Media and make us all forget about the atrocities Asheville Police Department is committing in our community. Your own documents acknowledge that this fixer firm comes from a recommendation after the appalling beating of Johnny Rush. David Zack came to our community ready to employ TV journalist Laura Cole's company to bury bad news after our city's cops made international news for destroying the medic tent and stabbing water bottles during the uprisings. Esther, you tried your fake tears, and David Zack released a statement full of lies about how the situation would be handled. Cops are being coached that there's no such thing as, quote, too much cheese factor when snapping photos to try to look good in the wake of the George Floyd protests. APD fakes good deeds for social media posts while they spend their days forcing people out of tents that they have no other choice but to live in here in in North Carolina's most unaffordable city. Asheville police are more concerned about getting likes on Facebook than they are with making any changes at all to how they violently operate. We spare no expense for police while the people who live here suffer. Meanwhile, Colpro Media is also at the ready for any critical incident videos to spin whatever horrific act we catch our police engaging in next. In Pacific Grove, California, when residents were concerned that an officer was displaying a bumper sticker for the Three Percenters, a right-wing terrorist militia group, Colpro advised elected officials to tell community members, quote, that continuing to bring this up has been counterproductive and does not allow us to move past this as a community. This same rhetoric is the same rhetoric we heard after APD blatantly fabricated data to fearmonger our community about our unhoused neighbors. APD continues to pull over our Black community members in 7 out of 10 investigative traffic stops, and use of force is directed at Black people 33% of the time, while they're just 11% of our population. We've seen APD protect gun-toting KKK members, allow fascists to run into protesters, and brazenly, they continue to employ Deputy Chief James Baumstark while he's currently being sued for overseeing a sex trafficking ring in Virginia. Colpro and APD's strategy: ignore questions from the media and pretend none of this is happening. Post a picture of a flower instead. To call this transparency is like 1984 Newspeak. This item being held as on the consent agenda and not as a public hearing is absolutely ridiculous. You do not represent us. You are representing the police interests. You yourselves have been intimidated by the police power that pushes you around. Meanwhile, we have no say in the matter, but we will continue to speak the truth as you continue to bloat consultants in order to obscure information, ignore any questions about you or your cops' content, and fuel extremist rhetoric. We are watching, and we see the game that is being played here, no matter what, quote, tree-huggerish slogan Colpro Media comes up with next.
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is Joe Wilkerson.
Let's take an iron stomach. Commend y'all for listening. Thank y'all for having me. I wanted to speak in response to the committee assignments also, which I think is consent agenda Q. I understand that city council works in tandem with city staff and that respect for the subject matter expertise of your appointed colleagues is essential to civic process. That any particular department might have a preference about which elected officials they prefer to work closely with does not come remotely as a surprise. I've got colleagues too. What does come as a surprise is the transparent willingness to give in to pressure to be relieved of what I would consider ordinary scrutiny. Doing so washes out the important distinction between collaboration with staff, which is essential, and cooperation with resisting run-of-the-mill oversight. Oversight, I understand, might seem like obstruction when any department is struggling, as so many police departments across the nation are, but we don't ultimately serve anyone by allowing that twisted logic to stand. So my concerns are twofold. First, bowing to pressure undermines the public's trust in sort of the separation of powers. That's the way it was put to me in grade school. And the second, it risks cutting Chairwoman Ullman and Vice Mayor Kilgore and Councilwoman Smith off at the knees, because the message that I'm taking in, rightly or wrongly, is sort of ask too many questions and this is going to be your last term on this particular committee, this particular very important committee. So I really want Asheville to have an effective, functional, adequately staffed, trusted, and trustworthy police department. And I suppose, Madam Mayor, to you, my concern is that by replacing a squeaky wheel, and I understand that Councilor Romanoni can be exactly that, we've made it more difficult in the long term to do this visionary work of reimagining public safety. So all is not lost. I'm not standing up here as a pessimist. We have 3 excellent and very capable councilwomen on the committee. Look forward to the work that y'all will do. And I, just speaking as a family member of multiple recovering alcoholics for a second, confrontation is an act of love. Asking difficult questions is a way of showing care and commitment to what matters most. And so I hope we'll see that happen, whoever's on the committee. Thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you. LA K.
Hey, I'm Alay. My pronouns are he, him. Most of you don't know me, and that's okay. I'd love to see everyone start using their pronouns here. It doesn't matter right now, but it kind of does. Departments of the Asheville government should not have the right to decide who is on their oversight team. You don't know me. I'm from DC. I understand government, and that's why you haven't seen me before. When I was born, I was in the womb. Both of my parents worked in Congress. I understand this stuff in ways that I wish I didn't. I'm asking all members of the City Council to deliver the clear message that they believe that police accountability deserves more discussion. You might not want to know this, but I believe in defunding the police. That's why I want Kim Roney on the committee. I'm also wondering how APD is carrying out the city's stated intention to reimagine public safety in light of their request to work with Cole Pro Media. Everyone's already talked about it, but a company known for encouraging police departments to bury exposing news and excuse problematic behavior. Police don't keep us safe. They've never kept me safe, and I don't think they ever will. If I go to jail, where the hell am I going? The men's side, the women's side, the non-binary side where I'm alone? I don't think we need police. They've never protected me and they never will. Probably not the topic of discussion tonight, but it kind of is. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you. Rebecca Morrison.
Good evening, everyone. As a member of this community, I would like City Council to reject the request of the Asheville Police Department for $162,000 to hire a PR firm called Colpro Media, which has made it clear through their practices that their goal is to cover up bad PR instead of holding people and systems accountable for the harm they cause our community members. The money could instead be used to support social services for the most at-risk folks in our community. I also want to parrot the concerns from folks here about how restructuring the committees has limited the focus city council members can offer to actually reimagining public safety. Not only that, but limiting the participation of City Council Member Roney, whose concerns about APD reflect that of your constituents, means specifically excluding valid perspectives from your community members. I am also concerned about the zoning proposal for 175 Lyman Street because it doesn't offer sufficient affordability or offer it for very long. I urge the council to reject this proposal and set the standard for doing better for its community members who need affordable housing. Thanks.
Thank you. Elizabeth Rawlings.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. I recently moved back to Asheville this past, about 2 years ago, after spending time in cities like Seattle and Chicago, where there is no concept of reimagining public safety. It is all just more of the same. So when I got here and I saw that there was a discussion about reimagining public safety, I was so excited. And during the time of attending city council meetings virtually and attending public safety meetings, what I saw was that, again, there's a phrase, but the actions are more of the same. Handling a PR firm to produce spin for the police department is not reimagining public safety. Bowing to pressure from the Asheville Police Department as to who is on the committee that oversees their budget is not reimagining public safety. Not only is it not reimagining public safety, it's hampering any ability to reimagine public safety in the public imagination. We receive so much propaganda about who police are and what police do from both sides that we don't actually have an understanding of how police act. We don't receive critical information unless we seek it out. All of these people are talking about how violence is up in Seattle. When you go on the APD's own website, it is down in almost every single category over the past year. Even though when you look over the past 5 years, it is up. That happened everywhere across the United States during COVID. We cannot reimagine public safety if those who ask very reasonable questions in the name of transparency for budget's sake are removed for asking questions at the request of the police department. I ask you, council, to consider removing the approval of Cole Media and their contract from the consent agenda. And I really hope that this is not setting a standard for the future where anyone who asks questions of the police department is summarily removed from their position and have somebody more agreeable put in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Kit Molina Neighbors.
Hey y'all, I don't have anything eloquent to say. I just want to also support removing consent agenda item Q because apparently it deserves to be discussed transparently and in view of the public. So that's my ask today. Thanks.
Rob Thomas. Five more after this. You guys have the list.
It's been a while since I came and provided public input to you all. I don't really have confidence in anything changing. Most things that are on the consent agenda are already decided upon, but I would like to point out that I don't really see I don't really understand why you can't give a reason why certain things are happening. Whereas, you know, with the Public Safety Committee, and you have a police chief that has the ability to decide who can get on and who can get off of the committee, that sets a terrible precedent for, I'm sorry. long day. It sets a terrible precedent for who has power to control certain processes. I'm sorry, I can't do this right now.
Sagan Thacker.
Hello. I did not prepare remarks, so I'll be rather brief, and you'll have to forgive me if I stumble. But I wanted to say that along with many of the other commenters here, I am firmly against the contract with ColdPro Media and the censoring of Councilmember Roney. And I just wanted to highlight for a moment, y'all, you're not letting criticism happen. You're not letting members of the council who say stuff that you don't want to hear say their part. And that really makes me wonder what you think your role is in all this, and how you operate, if you operate at the behest of the people or the police department. Are you uncomfortable? You should be uncomfortable. That's part of your job. And if you are not happy with being uncomfortable, then maybe you shouldn't be in this job. So think about that, and maybe consider how to better serve all the folks in Buncombe County, including houseless folks who are literally being evicted as we speak by Asheville Police Department. Consider whether you think that those people deserve to be served too, or whether they're just human trash. Because it sure feels like sometimes Asheville City and Asheville Police don't treat people like people. That's all I got.
David Plyler.
Mayor, members of council, I didn't plan to speak here this evening, but felt obligated to. I wanted to speak first to the ballistic vest grant. I have more of a unique position. I was born and raised in Asheville. I worked in law enforcement for 12 years full-time. I was sworn for 14 years. Prior to that, I was a medic and worked for EMS, not only here in Buncombe County, but also in Gaston County. I've got the unique position of having worn a ballistic vest to protect me while I'm out trying to protect the public. I don't do that job anymore. I left for other reasons. If I were the way that law enforcement has been treated in this county and in this city specifically, I would absolutely leave. I would advocate for officers that are currently here dealing with this to leave. I think the removal of Ms. Roney from the Public Safety Committee is a small step in the right direction. I've got experience in that realm. I've got experience in law enforcement. I can say that unequivocally, when you have an agenda-driven activist on a public safety committee, that's not in the interest of public safety. That's just activism. I appreciate that she is no longer, or should not be any longer, on that committee. I appreciate that we are going to, it looks like, accept the vest grant. That's a step in the right direction. But I'm not just advocating for law enforcement. I've personally zipped up body bags of citizens of this county. I've seen what happens in the low-income areas of this county and in the city. I've seen who is actually affected by the crime and the diminished law enforcement that we have here. It's not up here. I would invite Ms. Roney and any other member of council, jump in a patrol car. They'll probably give you a vest. Jump in there, ride with them. Don't do it during the day. Go to West Asheville, ride on the third shift. See what's actually happening in the city and what our officers are doing. We have lost so many police in this city that you're not going to replace one recruit for one lost officer of 15, 20 years. And it's not just attrition for retirement. The experience that you've lost is almost irreplaceable. We are at least 10 years. If you had recruits lining up today to fill those voids, you're 10 years from being where we were. Do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Martinez.
I'm like, I was just writing up what I was going to say right now. I'm not here to pretend like you care, that you will even listen to me. I've been coming here for the past 4 years with the hopes that my voice will be heard. Whether you listen or not, it will be heard. As we all know, maybe you don't know, but that's going to happen. I will say the people of Asheville deserve to have people who represent them. When I look and listen to you all, I am positive that I don't. Most of the people in my communities don't either. And that community varies because I'm involved in many different communities in this city. I say community, no, I already said that. Forward, I don't think you should remove Kim from the committee because you're already, but I also believe that you're already doing that. So it's kind of pointless to say. I went to school for criminal justice. My dad's a cop. My grandfather's a cop. My uncles are all cops. And I think the criminal justice system has done more to traumatize me in my life, aside from the shit that happened in 2020, than I can ever undo. And I think that the longer you continue down this path, you're gonna do that to every fucking person, every person in this county. Don't excuse me, I mean, it is what it is. It's human language, you've all heard. Have a great evening, thank you.
Amy Crims Parks.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. I am a newer import to Asheville. I have lived in the Cleveland area. I have lived in Utah. I continue to be so disappointed in the ways that the criminal justice system is terrorizing, especially our children. I work with children and youth, and I spend a lot of time talking about council culture. And what that means is when you don't agree with something, you just say, I don't want it anymore. I can cancel it. I can make enough angry comments, and I can get somebody canceled. Trying to cancel Kim Rooney is trying to cancel transparency. And it is important for us to model at this level for our children that that is not what we are about. I get increasingly concerned that people use their power, which is why we need to reimagine a whole lot of things in our government. But we need to understand that we are modeling for our children what it means to work together. And if someone in their questioning is being canceled and removed, then we're telling our children and our youth it's not okay to question. It's not okay that you need to have accountability. Accountability is a key component to growth. I hope that we, like one of my siblings said, that you are uncomfortable. I have a young man who is 19 as a son. The way that he encounters the world is in terror whenever the police department is around. And that is not because every police person that he has interacted with is negative or hateful. It is because the collective experience tells him it is scary and it's not okay. So please reconsider Kim Rooney being appointed to this safety committee because questions are okay and transparency is necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. And Stacy Griffin.
Hi. I didn't plan to speak this evening, but as the spouse of a APD officer, I feel it's important. We talk about transparency, we talk about mental health, we talk about don't cancel Kim Rooney, but you know what? Kim Rooney talks about canceling the police every single time she gets on that call. And I've been on those. I've watched them. Why we vote for safety vests is ridiculous, in my opinion. That is something that should be a given. You have health insurance, don't you? That's a given. That's a safety for them. Have you ever seen a police funeral? Have you? Because I have. When the officer in Greenville was shot, he was a friend of ours. And I watched his family, and I watched the procession, and I watched all of those things. And it was horrible. And I don't ever want that to happen to my husband or anybody else's husband or family member. So that shouldn't even be a question. And I've watched her vote against them. I've watched her vote against grants. Grants, free federal money to help. You talk about money and budgets, it's free money. She doesn't want that either. You talk about mental health. These officers are working 12 hours a day, and they're working 14 days in a row because they are so understaffed. Okay? But if they don't go out there and do it, guess what? When someone comes to break into your house or kills your family member or something horrible happens, there's not going to be anyone there. But you want mental health. What about their mental health? 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 10, 15 days in a row? That's okay. You want better policing? Then pay them what they're worth to live in a city that, quite frankly, isn't worth a shit. You are based on tourism? Oh, trust me, I tell my family all the time, please don't come here. You're gonna get hurt. I moved here 8 years ago, used to be able to walk downtown. They had a whole police department down there that watched over people. And now, nothing, because they can't afford to. It's pretty sad. You argue about money and you talk transparency and you talk about mental health and all reimagining. Okay, that's great. What are we reimagining for the force? What are we reimagining for the department? What are we reimagining to help each one of them buy a house, support their families? Guess what? If you work 15 days in a row, 12-hour shifts, yeah, you're mentally burned out. You're burned out. But with what we pay them and what we expect of them, it doesn't matter. But then we want to talk about mental health. Well, how does that work? You don't give two shits about their mental health. But we need to fix the problem. And really, at the end of the day, that's all it boils down to.
Thank you. Okay,
There's more.
okay, we're gonna, we've got two more people signed up, and I think we're gonna complete our public comment process here. So we've got Tyler Smith, and then after that, Bernard, I think it says West.
Hello. I just wanted to say more to maybe the people back here. I feel like there's a lot of frustration in this room, and there are people on both sides. I don't agree, obviously, with one side, but if you are trying to help Kim Roney and take the city forward, maybe think about joining the DSA or starting a union or having some way to withhold your labor so that way you can do something where you build power in your community instead of coming up here with no power and just kind of begging for people to do what you want. So, yeah.
Thank you. Bernard West?
My name is Bernard. Good evening. I keep hearing this conversation. I didn't plan on speaking tonight, but at least when I was growing up, I was told all throughout school to be proactive, be proactive, be proactive. And for some reason, I grew up and all the adults now are being reactive. So I keep hearing, let's spend money on bulletproof vests, let's do this, let's do that. But why aren't we solving the problems that cause those things in the first place? Like, something's not meshing for me, and I don't know if that's something everyone else is missing as well, but I'm 22 now. 22 years of my life, adults have been telling me to be proactive, and then when I get into a room with adults are telling me I'm wrong and that I'm being proactive, but me being proactive is wrong, so I'm sorry, something's not clicking. So I don't know if that's a problem in the community or what, but I think we should address the things that are happening there first. And for people who are saying, oh, they're understaffed, they're underpaid, well, okay, so firefighters fight fires, medics deal with medical issues. So if a cop needs to deal with the homeless and people peeing on the sidewalk and also robbers and murder, I'm sorry, like, let's give them one job then, to stop crime, and then we can have somebody else deal with mental health issues. So I think that's like the clearest way to fix these things, and I don't know why we keep going in circles and being reactive here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Alex, you're on the, I have you on the end. Okay.
So first off, I would like for anybody in here that does actually support our police department and is a reasonable person to please stand up, because there's a lot more of us than what y'all probably realize. Thanks. My name is Alex. My degree is in criminal justice. I grew up in Rutherford County. So a little bit about me. I had a hard time with my family when I was growing up. And when I was in school for criminal justice, one of my instructors was a magistrate. And there I met two wonderful lesbian officers who kind of took me in. So I love officers. I love people in law enforcement. They're some of the kindest people that you'll ever meet. They don't do this job for money. They do it because they have a passion for their communities. And I think you see that in every single officer that we have. We have some of the best officers, I believe, especially the ones that are left, because they're working their ass off. It's not an easy job. It's a very hard job. Public safety is not something new. We have all the answers, frankly. We can look back through history and we can solve it. But the way we're going now is a reactive approach. Our cops can't be proactive when we're like half-staffed. How are they out in the community and solving problems? They can't, because they're having to react because there's so few of them. So if you think you're being progressive, you're actually not. You're being regressive, and the crime statistics show it. Crime is up dramatically, and people are like, I mean, in real estate, there are so many people that do not want to move into the city of Asheville. I'm selling more homes in Henderson County and Haywood County. People are looking outside of the city because they don't want to live here. They don't trust that they're going to be safe. That's a really sad thing. So I really wish you guys would start caring about that. I think you need to grow a spine, every single one of you, and start standing up for the men and women that serve this city. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to have to revisit the rules because I don't think swearing or clapping's allowed, but we just devolved during that. But we'll move through the consent agenda. Starting with H1, we have a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for and accept grant funds from the U.S. Department of Justice for the 2022 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant. We already had a motion and a second. Okay,
I have
please.
a comment. I know that I'm asked to explain my vote, so. Regarding HIJK, our city is desperate for an appropriate and equitable quality public service response. Disparities in our service outcomes are well documented, which is why I've asked for the city to add to our public safety response, ensuring we send the right person with the right tools and training during crises, including mental health, opioid poisoning, intimate partner violence, and violence interruption and prevention. It is the council duty to maintain oversight of budget plans and policies. The Public Safety Committee is still lacking the requested update to the fiscal year to date budget and projections. Last year, Public Safety Committee was presented with a public safety budget surplus of over $1 million. There's an expectation and anticipation we'll again have a budget surplus that can be used to meet the very serious public safety issues in our community. I repeat the understanding that overtime is expensive, so we likely don't have the surplus that the public expects with so many vacancies. But we need to be able to inform and educate the public on budget resources that are available. In the last Public Safety Committee meeting, I heard clearly we're not going to get into the details of the budget at this committee level. But if not at the committee level, then where? Bulletproof vests are an absolutely necessary tool for the role we assign to our APD staff, and there is funding in the budget for this resource. Until we have updates on our budget, my no vote is directed not at approving increase to the budgets that lack transparency, because these items would otherwise and are literally named as being funded in our existing budget, of which 47% of our general fund balance is allocated to public safety. And when we get to item Q, I respect the role of the mayor in assigning the council committees.
In addition to my moral and social obligations as a taxpayer and a neighbor, my fiscal obligations and duty to ensure human and civil rights of the people of Asheville as a council member compel me to continue to ask hard questions. Though I may not be seated on the Environment and Safety Committee, I am committed to the work of oversight and ensuring quality, equitable service outcomes. And I hope that my neighbors who care, regardless of whether they agree with me on the details, will stay committed to this conversation because I think that we care and we can do better. Thank you.
Sage, did you have a
Well,
comment?
if we're commenting and asking questions on all of these items, I will
Well,
go now.
however
but-
you guys want to do it.
I mean, it's a little confusing, sorry. Just a procedural question. So in the, digging into the documents, it's a
Sage,
three-year.
pull that microphone down a little bit more so.
Can you all hear me okay?
I think-
That's better. Great, sorry. So I was just looking at the document, and the contract for the media is 3 years for 162, so it's 54,000 a year. I'm just curious, it says it's an optional renewal. Is that an option for both parties?
Yes.
So in effect, we have,
Chief to come up and respond.
it's okay.
I wanna make
It's
sure
just a simple, it's usually a contractual on both sides could release themselves. So in effect, we have a 1-year period to look at this. I heard someone mention that. And I'm just sharing that perspective. I will be supporting this tonight, but I understand the frustration in the room. I also want to say what is very clear to me right now is no matter what side you're on, or if there are 2 sides or 4 sides of all these issues, one thing is very clear: we all very much care about public safety and what is happening. So I also requested to be on that committee. I understand the frustration in the room is that you are losing someone you feel is transparent. But more people did apply to be on that committee and were not appointed or request to be on. And also, I think what I'm hearing, and something I've said at this dais several times when we've brought public safety items to consent or for additional council support, is that perhaps more of these items that are public safety related should come to the entire council. Because I'm hearing that more people want to be on the committee.
To be clear, they all come to council.
Well,
You mean-
but for
you mean
greater
not-
discussion.
You mean not on the
the
consent
level of
agenda?
detail,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I mean,
I understand what you're saying.
I'm physically on 10 of these boards. I can't attend public safety as well. I would like to, but I'm full. And I don't feel that I'm as fully engaged on all of these items. And when they come here, I'm catching up. And I'm not sure that's the same, like I'm sensing in the room the brevity it's intense. And perhaps that needs to be a grander conversation, that's all.
Did you have a comment? No?
I'll jump in. Hey, folks. It's my first council meeting, so I'm thrilled to be here with you all. And I am a little nervous, so I prepared something to say, so apologies as I read from this. But I'll be getting the hang of this before we know it. So we've heard a lot about public safety tonight. I also want to pause and just make sure we lift up something that no one has talked about, the fact that this Public Safety and Environment Committee is happening, and for the first time, council has lifted concerns about our environment to a council committee level. That's pretty massive. That's very important to the community. And I want to thank my colleagues for acknowledging my deep experience as a national environmental leader to ask me to chair this committee. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate y'all's wisdom in not siloing the environment and integrating it with public safety through this committee, because we need to respond to the climate emergency. A lot of what we will experience will be public emergencies where we're going to need public safety response in a really meaningful way. And I want to talk specifically about a lot of what I've been hearing and corresponding with folks over email and talking with folks ahead of this. I'm hearing a lot of concern about accountability and transparency. They are paramount to the success of this council committee and to what we all do around public safety. Our entire council has a shared responsibility for our actions to increase public safety, and the members of this committee will have a distinct accountability, I believe, towards our goals, especially the goal of keeping our most vulnerable community members safe. That's what this is about, right? That's what public safety is about. And when we look at the data of who is most impacted by violence and by climate change, we see that women of color are our most vulnerable. To me, the proposed committee centers 2 of our 3 women of color, and in my case, myself with the most professional experience on the environment to serve for the next 2 years. I think this is a good makeup. I think that, as Sage said, there were several committees that I volunteered to be on that I won't be on. I think that's just the nature of this. I don't think that by losing, when we have a rotation like this, those that are appointed are still completely accountable to you all. And I will be accountable to you all, and appreciate everyone who came to make comments tonight.
Thank you. So to clarify why we do vote on these, they're actually relatively small contract amounts. I believe it's because, and maybe we can have some confirmation, because anytime we're receiving grant funds, in this case, it's federal grant funds, we have to vote to receive them, even if they're small amounts of money.
That and state grants. There is a state law requirement that requires the council to accept those two governmental grants, regardless of the amount.
And we try to maximize leveraging federal and state grants, not just in public safety, but whether it's transportation or whatever the project is that we're trying to fund, we try to take advantage of those opportunities because it makes sense for folks who are having to pay into taxes to support our budget, which if you listened to our work session earlier tonight, you'd hear our budget is fairly tight. So these are good opportunities to receive funds for things that we need. So this first item, we have, does anyone else want to speak on this first one, H1? Do we have a motion in a second?
yeah.
Did you want to say something?
Yes,
Okay.
I will.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What I would like to say is, I realize this is a very difficult decision that council has to make. And it, basically, I can understand parts of both sides. However, I think we have to take in consideration, whenever we make decisions, it has to be based on what we're dealing with at that particular time. And as you know, right now, we're dealing with a lot of challenges here in Asheville. And unfortunately, of course, reimagining public safety, I'm a big advocate. We definitely need to do something about it, and we are doing things about it. We actually have all kinds of organizations that take care of drug overdoses, and we have committees that take care of the homeless, and we're dealing with a lot of these issues as we speak. And basically, we have to do both at the same time. We cannot move to one extreme or from the other. And basically, with this particular situation, the mayor has been given, the responsibility of keeping the people in the community safe. And that's the most important thing that we all need to look at right now. And because our police department is down 42%, and right now it's really hard to even get people to apply for the job or even get more, we cannot afford to have that number actually go any lower. So basically, I think in a situation like this, the mayor has made the best decision she feels at this particular time for the people in the city. And therefore, like I said, I believe in transparency. I believe in everyone having a voice. But right now, these are difficult times and trying times, and decisions may not be the best decisions that all of us feel it's needed at that particular time. But we have to do what we must do to protect the people in the community. So I will be voting for that. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second for item H1. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, the second one is H2. Do I have a motion for the budget amendment that corresponds with this item in the amount of $20,327.22 from the U.S. Department of Justice 2022 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant? I need a motion.
I'll move.
Second? Anybody?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. That was, yeah. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Next, we have a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for and accept grant funds from the U.S. Department of Justice for the 2022 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant. Do I have a motion? Just roll on.
Aye, I will move.
Okay. Second?
Second.
We don't have Gwen here anymore. She was always our consent agenda.
I'll do better.
All right. Did you get the second, Maggie? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, you got it. Do I have a motion for the approval of the budget amendment in the amount of $80,145 from the U.S. Department of Justice for the 2022 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Do I have a motion approving the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Cole Pro Media LLC for police transparency engagement advising services?
I'll move.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a comment.
Okay.
Is it possible for this to come back to us in a year?
Absolutely.
Rather than it be executed at a staff level?
Automatic
Making
renewal,
up.
is that what you're saying? No automatic, a discussion with council?
Discussion at full council.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, do you want hands? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. Okay, got it? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the city manager to renew a contract with LexisNexis for the Accurate Virtual Crime Center Crime Analysis Platform?
I'll move.
Okay,
Second.
okay, I have a motion and a second. Did you get it? Antoinette, she threw you for a loop. She was
Second.
your first.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I messed you up there.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay. And then finally, so confusingly, attached to our agenda is all of our council subcommittees, which this council just voted unanimously to change up. There's 6 of those. And then also all of the boards and commissions that we serve as liaisons to. All of those appointments are at my discretion, except 3 of them, which are the only 3 you actually need to vote on tonight. So before I get a motion to appoint Maggie Ullman to the MPO, Sage Turner to the Audit Committee, and Maggie Ullman to CPAC, let me just say a couple of things. So when I was first elected mayor in 2013, I learned that the mayor makes these appointments. Well, I learned it when I was on council when Terry Bellamy made these appointments to the subcommittees of council and the liaison positions. And the liaison positions it's really more trying to get everyone to volunteer to take on the duty because it is a lot of time commitment, especially if you try to go to all of the meetings. And I appreciate Councilwoman Roney and Councilwoman Ullman are sharing actually some of the environmentally focused and other committees, so that's a great compromise. But just so folks know who are talking about the concern around transparency and accountability, which is a very real issue and concern, and one that we're constantly working to do better on. Please know that council subcommittees, including the new Environment and Public Safety Committee, make recommendations to the full council. They are not the final stop for the approval or denial of, well, they may be the final stop for the denial of something, but for the approval of something, it has to come to this body. And everyone on this council can ask questions, ask for data, ask for information, ask for information regarding budget items, whatever information they need to be able to make a decision one way or another on the items that come to this council. So that process has not changed. We created the council subcommittee concept years ago. It's not necessarily used in every city. It's voluntary. It's something that every city decides how to do on their own. We decided that the topics were large enough that we needed to have the council subcommittee process for review of items before they got to council. So that's the system we've been using. And after every election, the mayor makes appointments. I've been doing that since I've been mayor, and this is the first time we actually posted it on the agenda. So but normally it's more of an internal process, appointment process anyway. So I appreciate, though, that now there's a lot of discussion about that, and that we've had that discussion. It is my decision. I gotta say, I'm a little ruffled at the idea that I need a chief of police to tell me what to do, because that's not how this works. I can make my own decisions, and I do make my own decisions. So I definitely do that, even though I have the greatest respect for our chief of police, but I take all that input from the community and then make my decisions. My topmost concern is that we're able to function as a city, that we can get the work done, that our staff, which is already thin, as you've heard, not just in our police department, but in our administration overall, our public works, other departments. Cities across America are down in employees dramatically. We are sharing that pain. So my greatest concern is that the work is getting done, that it is transparent, and this council has the information it needs to make decisions. And so that, I do consider how that works internally with our 1,200, hopefully 1,200 staff, 1,200 positions that need to be filled, so that we can all do our work most effectively for the community. If we're not functioning at our best level, we're not serving the community to the best of our ability, and that's, to me, not a good outcome. To me, this is not a decision about what matters more, APD, reimagining public safety. That, to me, is not what this conversation is about. It's about getting the work done. I am personally very focused, and I know this council is very focused on continuing the work around reimagining public safety. We have not taken our foot off the gas pedal in that goal. So please know that these are difficult decisions. I did speak with Councilwoman Roney prior to tonight about this decision. We had a discussion about it. And we're all still gonna play nice in the sandbox. So, so thank you all for coming out tonight and voicing your concerns. We're always glad that we get to hear from all of you. We have the longest consent agendas of any city in North Carolina, I'm pretty sure. But maybe that's a lesson for what shouldn't be on consent. But that brings us to this moment where we need a motion to approve Councilwoman Maggie Ullman to serve on the MPO, Councilwoman Sage Turner, who, thank you, was willing to serve on the audit committee now that Gwen's gone.
Everybody's favorite.
Right. And for Maggie Ullman to serve as the ex officio non-voting member of CPAC.
I have
So
a question about that real quick. So on our agenda that's public facing, the MPO appointment
Correct.
isn't on there. Do we need to make a motion? Because I would make a motion to add that Maggie's appointment to the MPO be included.
So it's on the chart, but Brad, you tell us what you think we need to do
Yeah,
there.
so just as the mayor stated, the entire list of appointments, and there are considerable appointments, including a list of members who are already on various boards and commissions, was included on the agenda, so we had full transparency about which council members were serving on the various boards, commissions, and committees. There are two that were pulled out. We certainly could have added one additional one, which is the appointment of Councilmember Ullman to the MPO. But you're free to, as the mayor has done, make a motion to simply add that. That is the only item that is only listed on the separate full list, as opposed to the two that were pulled off separately. So it is on the full agenda. It was just included as part of the full list of appointments. Many of those have already been made.
And so the difference is that the three that we're talking about, just legally in their charters
They
or process
require
requires us to make a
council approval.
decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly right. There are a total of 11 positions that require, based upon the enabling ordinance, a council vote. Only 3 of those positions are currently open, and those are the 3 that we need votes on this evening.
Thanks.
Okay, so I said the motion. Does anyone want to make that motion?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, that concludes the consent agenda. Now, do you want to stay for the manager's report, or do we need a quick break so folks can leave if they don't want to stay for the manager's report? Otherwise, it gets really noisy. Okay, we'll take just a couple minutes, all right, and then we'll get the manager's report.
I can't believe you all are leaving on the manager's report.
I can't believe it.
Can't believe it.
It's, you know.
Okay, and we're back. I'm going to turn it over to Deborah Campbell, our city manager, for the manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, and a good evening, everyone. I'm going to try to step through this very, very quickly. I have a couple of updates related to the Asheville Fire Department, and unfortunately, the first one starts out with a bit of sad news for us. We lost one of our heroes in the City of Asheville family, particularly with the Asheville Fire Department. Safety and Training Officer Jeff Lyons passed on November the 16th. His funeral services was on November the 21st with military and fire honors. Both myself and the mayor were able to attend, and it was an amazing event to honor an amazing man. He served 26 years with the Asheville Fire Department, also served in the U.S. Army, and is an Air Force veteran as well. So what I'd like if the chief, and I think the deputy chief, and we have a number of firefighters that are in the audience, if you all could just stand. I really want to express both my continuing thoughts to the family of Mr. Lyons, but also to our AFD employees. Our thoughts are with you, continue to be with you. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Yeah, we need to pay a lot of people more, unfortunately. The next one is a bit of good news. Actually, I'm understating this. It is really, really good news for our community and for the Asheville Fire Department and for the city of Asheville. The Insurance Services Office rating. This is something that happens on a recurring basis, and our AFD was awarded the highest fire suppression rating of a Class 1 by the NC Insurance Commission and the State Fire Marshal. Once every 5 years, every aspect of AFD is inspected. This rating included components of key partners, Buncombe County Emergency Management, Public Safety Communications, and Water Resources Department. The key bullet up there is less than 1% of all fire departments nationwide, not just North Carolina, have achieved this rating. And so I'm not going to read the rest of the bullet points, but just to express what a difficult time it is for an agency to receive this type of a rating. And I know it's been in the news about us achieving this, but I just wanted to acknowledge and then to share with City Council what an exceptional job our AFD has done over the past 5 years and obviously historically. So again, we have our, if there are any particular, Chief, if there are office, firefighters that you want to acknowledge specifically, please feel free to do so.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. And really, every single firefighter in our department had a huge part of this. Our firefighters in our community is the reason that our community has such a wonderful fire department. Thank you.
And the last thing that I would say with this acknowledgement is this improved rating could mean insurance cost savings for our community. So there's a direct correlation and benefit for the entire community. So again, thank you. And last but not least, we're going to do a little bit more bragging in terms of accomplishments, and I have Assistant City Manager Rachel Wood, who's going to give you an update on our annual report. Rachel.
Before we move on there, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
We just talked a lot about the importance of our fire department and how they may have actually resulted, their actions result in the cost savings. But for 5 or 6 years, they've had to fight for and advocate for greater wages. So I know we talked about wage increases and a compression study impact, and I know that we're expecting to see that from a council level. So when we see a future manager report, can we look at that compensation and make sure that we're following our obligations?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Asheville Fire Department.
Sorry for keeping you so late tonight.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Rachel Wood, Assistant City Manager. As the City Manager mentioned, I'm going to briefly go through our fiscal year 21-22. That's the fiscal year that ended June 30th annual report. And before I get started, I do want to issue a few thank yous. First, want to thank all the departments who contributed information and, more importantly, did the hard work behind the information that I'm going to be presenting this evening. Also want to thank our assistant to the city manager, Jamie Matthews, who is the primary coordinator on preparing this report. And lastly, want to thank Christy Edwards in our CAPE department, who is the primary editor and helped with the layout of the report. I'd also like to acknowledge that November 17th was Christy Edwards' 25th anniversary with the city of Asheville, so just want to congratulate her and thank her for the great work that she does for our organization. So as I mentioned, the fiscal year runs July 1 through June 30th each year, and this is actually the first time in approximately 10 years that the city of Asheville has prepared an annual report. We made a commitment back at your March retreat to provide more regular performance reporting to you via the council committees as well as other outlets. So this is a part of that effort to be more forthright and transparent in reporting the progress that we're making in achieving your strategic priorities. Fiscal year 21-22 operations began to normalize as we became more equipped to respond to the ongoing challenges associated with the pandemic, staffing shortages, and increasing demands for city services. This annual report by no means is comprehensive, but it does highlight many of the achievements and successes from throughout the year, particularly the work that was done to fulfill the City Council's vision and priorities. Currently, staff is working hard to refine processes from the prior fiscal year to further align the work that we're doing with your priority direction. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read through this slide, but listed on the slide are your City Council vision, which was established in 2016, along with the 8 vision focus areas, which were also established in 2016. And then each year, your vision is reviewed along with the establishment of your annualized strategic priorities. So for fiscal year 22, you had 4 strategic priorities identified. Those included reparations, reimagining public safety, utilization of ARPA funds, and employee compensation. So I'm going to briefly go through each of those priority areas and highlight a few of the accomplishments that we had within each of those priority areas. Starting with reparations. So in July 2020, the City Council passed a resolution, being one of the first local governments in North Carolina to approve support for community reparations for Black residents. This resolution called for the city manager to establish a process to develop recommendations focused on the creation of generational wealth and enhancing economic opportunity in the Black community. Following that direction, the city manager recommended a 3-phased approach, which included an information sharing and truth-telling focus. This occurred in June of 2021 with a speaker series. Feedback received from that speaker series ultimately impacted the implementation of the next 2 phases. Next phase was formation of a reparations commission. In March of 2022, the City Council and Buncombe County Commission appointed a 25-member commission. That commission is now working on phase 3, which is the finalization and presentation of a report. The Reparations Commission held their first meeting on April 30th of 2022 and continues to work toward the development of those recommendations. So what's next with reparations? Because of the importance of the work that the Reparations Commission is doing and the importance of reparations in our community, at your March 16th and 17th retreat, you readopted reparations as a strategic priority for the current fiscal year. The Reparations Commission is currently working to develop that report, which is scheduled currently for completion in spring or summer of 2024. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Reparations Commission is January 9th. Both the city and the county commission have adopted or have committed $500,000 annually to fund reparations moving forward. The next priority area I'll highlight is reimagining public safety. Reimagining public safety examines how the city of Asheville structures departmental responsibilities as well as community partnerships in a way that promotes racial equity and economic inclusion. Examples of efforts in the previous fiscal year to support reimagining public safety include transferring animal control as well as noise ordinance enforcement from APD to Development Services Department. On January 1st, the city and county 911 services were consolidated. We also used salary savings from APD to increase training opportunities. Examples of increased training opportunities offered in FY22 include civility training, crisis intervention training, and advancing racial equity training. We also had the creation of the Office of Data and Performance in FY22, and this was established to enhance the use of data for equitable outcomes, accountability, and communication. Moving forward with reimagining public safety, because of the importance of this work, it was yet again identified as a strategic priority for fiscal year 22-23. And examples of important work that's currently underway is APD's support for intervention and community outreach, implementation of retention and recruitment strategies, which were presented to you during a recent city manager's report to help make APD more competitive for maintaining existing as well as recruiting new officers. And then you've recently heard at the Public Safety Committee about work that the Asheville Fire Department has underway collaborating with Buncombe County on a community response team that helps address overlapping community needs related to the unsheltered, behavioral health, as well as substance abuse.
Rachel, can we press pause right there because there's something missing from that conversation. I did have a request of the Public Safety Committee. Could we get a side-by-side comparison of what would be the cost of us doing our own program versus contracting to expand the county's program because they already have established training, some rules of procedure. They already have some equipment. So my understanding is we might have an opportunity to look at maybe having a downtown unit just of community paramedicine. What would that look like? But if we haven't asked, then staff won't have the instruction to start having that conversation. I think that we should have a conversation of, we already know transit, we duplicate everything. So why would we move into duplicating this when we've already consolidated 911? Can we make sure we have one streamlined communication instead of creating our own? That's my concern, is duplication.
I think I just did a community paramedic ride along, my second one this last week. And what I heard from Taylor, the emergency services director, and the community paramedics themselves was they're having a challenge even staffing up to what they've now been funded, because now they're off the pilot and they're trying to expand their service provision and they're fully funded now for, I think, at least 2 years through the county to expand what they're doing. And they're having the same staffing challenges. What I heard them say to us was, great, you want to utilize your staff to complement and partner with us on our community paramedic program. What would be the best thing is if you could ask us how that complement would best function. So, for example, the night we were out, there was a woman who had, she needed wound care. And just helping her and then get her situated in a temporary shelter took one paramedic pretty much, I don't know, maybe 4 hours or 5 hours. So for example, if we have EMTs who are able to, who are already trained in it within the fire department, for example, who are able to complement that service, maybe pass off that, so that they can go continue to respond to other situations and allow someone else to work with her. Those were some of the conversations that probably needed to happen about, since they've been doing this now for almost 2 years, they've learned a lot about what's working and what's not working and how we could best complement what they're doing. Staffing is such a challenge that it sounded to me like throwing more money at them might not solve anything because they can't even staff up to what they've been funded at yet. But figuring out how to complement them in a way that makes sense for us and for them is an important conversation for us to have. So I'm feeling optimistic that those conversations are happening.
That conversation was had during public safety in our last meeting. When this conversation was raised, Taylor stepped in and said the same thing, that we were trying to figure out the scope of work that our co-responder unit would do. And as we define the scope of our work, we'll ensure that we're not duplicating services already rendered by community paramedics. So the committee already heard that, and Taylor reiterated that he supports working alongside our co-responder team.
That's all very helpful, and my ears perked up when I heard dedicated team for downtown, and I think it's something we need to talk about.
Well, and I think, again, complementing their expansion of their program, because they do say that they spend a lot of time in the downtown. We actually ended up on a bunch of calls out in the county, but they said normally they're more in the downtown area. I think they would love to be able to get to that point. Again, staffing issues to be able to, it's just like us having designated districts, even for APD, to be able to have, it's the same issue, the staffing issue. Not recognize, it's not that no one recognizes the need, they do. It seems to be more of a staffing issue.
And I just want to reiterate that term, collaborating. We're working with the county. I just want to make certain that you all know it.
So moving on to the next council priority for fiscal year 2022, that is utilizing ARPA funds. The federal government approved a $65.1 billion American Rescue Plan Act program to help communities recover from COVID-19. The city of Asheville received $26 million locally in ARPA funding. And during fiscal year 22, the city council made important decisions on how best to invest those ARPA funds back into the community. Projects were selected for funding based on the categories and criteria listed on the screen. 18 projects have been funded to date for a total of $24.9 million. As the majority of the city's $26 million in ARPA funding has been allocated, staff is now working on the implementation phase. Staff is working on reporting and working on making sure that the partner agencies who receive those ARPA dollars are able to comply with the federal requirements for these ARPA funds. Future information about ARPA funding will be shared with the community throughout the implementation phase using an online dashboard and future presentations to the City Council, as well as posts to the City Source blog. Finally, employee compensation was another one of your strategic priorities for fiscal year 2022. In 2021, Archer conducted a compensation study, and recommendations from that compensation study were fully funded as a part of the fiscal year 2022 budget. The cost of that implementation was $7.9 million citywide, with approximately 87% of that funding going to employees earning less than $60,000 annually. Increased compensation resulted in several key categories of employees receiving increases, including an average of a 16% increase to fire personnel, 13% increase to police, and a minimum of a 2.5% increase to all other departments or civilian employees. The fiscal year 22 operating budget also included 8 weeks of paid parental leave, which I am personally very grateful for. And the city also added 2 additional paid holidays, including Juneteenth and Veterans Day last fiscal year. So on the horizon for employee compensation, the fiscal year 23 budget expanded employee compensation with the following increases. This included an increase of at least $35,316,000 as an annual salary for employees, with an additional adjustment on January of 2023 to $36,816 annually. An important note, since 2020, the city's minimum starting salary has increased by 18%. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to the city manager for her leadership in that effort. The current fiscal year budget also included staff with a 5% cost of living adjustment for anyone who was hired on or before December 31st, or a 2.5% increase for employees hired after that date. Most recently, the human resources staff did conduct a compression study, and compression adjustments actually went into effect on November 26th. Special thanks to our human resources staff for the work that they did. They actually conducted that work more quickly than they had originally anticipated, because we did want to have those increases for impacted employees reflected on their paycheck prior to the holidays. Ongoing for fiscal year 23, we have additional funds allocated for a new emergency medical technician pay supplement for Asheville Fire Department, and we also have additional funds for advanced EMT certification supplements for staff who earn that certification. I want to also highlight a few key statistics related to core services that we provide across the city that aren't necessarily aligned with the priorities that were established for fiscal year 2022. Want to highlight that calls for police service were actually down in fiscal year 2022, and in conversations with police department staff, a lot of that is a result, we believe, of increased usage of the online police to citizen platform for reporting non-emergency matters online rather than having to make those calls for service. Transit ridership was down in fiscal year 22, likely because of service cuts in the spring and summer resulting in labor shortages. I confirmed with Jessica Morris today that as of November 1st, all of the routes that were cut have been reestablished, so we hope to see an uptick in fiscal year 23 in those numbers. In the spirit of kind of responding to and having that new normal in the pandemic, there was actually a 65% increase in unique program participants for Parks and Recreation programming in fiscal year 22. I'm not going to go through all of these. I know it's already been a long evening, but we do have a few other notable accomplishments that we wanted to highlight. 1.5 million people participated in programs and attended events at city facilities last fiscal year. Over 26,000 linear feet of water pipes were replaced. We generated 214.32 megawatt hours of renewable energy, reducing 152 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. We also implemented the new neighborhood matching grant program where 13 neighborhoods were awarded a total of $60,950. And using the different tools in our affordable housing toolkit, we funded an additional 257 affordable housing units in fiscal year 2022. So staff is working really hard to better align the work that we are doing with your strategic priorities and ultimately your vision. And the way we are communicating across the organization, why we do what we do is ultimately the City Council's vision as well as your strategic priorities. What we're doing is organized by the City Council Committee work plans, which you've all adopted and will be working on refining with the establishment of the new council committee structure. We have a more operationally focused organizational work plan, and then at the departmental level, we have departmental work plans, which department directors who are listening, they're due December 16th, so please remember to get them submitted. And then how we do what we do is what we call our project management framework, and this is really implementing project management best practices for all of the work that we do across the organization, including having really intentional stakeholder engagement, having clearly defined scopes of work for the projects that we're working on, and making sure that we have sign-off at necessary levels of leadership before implementing work. But our goal ultimately is to make sure that every single individual employee can tie the work that they're doing back to the priorities that you've established as a council. We are also working to better align your priorities with the budget development process. Part of how we're doing that is we're actually moving the Office of Data and Performance from the IT Services Department to the Finance Department as a part of the budget division. So the way this cycle is going to work, and we're working closely with Taylor and Tony on how better to integrate these processes, is council sets their broad vision for the city where staff should focus efforts and improve or expand services. Then via the budget process, resources are allocated to achieve those stated goals. Through work plan development, staff then identifies how to best achieve those goals with the allocated resources. And then throughout the year, including with the annual report, we will report out on progress on how we're ultimately making progress and identifying where adjustments should be made. So key takeaways, we want to continue having an annual report, and we also want to, throughout the year, have more regular performance reporting. That's part of what that move of the ODAP team to the finance as well as budget division hopefully will achieve with having not just an annual report, but having online dashboards, more readily accessible information, and being more intentional with how we structure our reports at the city council level as well as at the council committee level to make sure that you can see how the work that we are doing ultimately is helping impact that priority direction that we've gotten from you. And with that, I will gladly answer any questions, and that concludes our annual report overview.
Can you tell them where, especially for the public, how they can access the document?
Sure, it's available online under government. It actually just got loaded, so I'm going to not want to quote exactly where it is. But if you Google annual report, City of Asheville, it should pop up, and it is definitely under the government section. I know you have to scroll about 3/4 of the way down the page, but other than that, I'm not going to be able to quote exactly how to access it.
I had a question. You'd mentioned that you've talked with transportation and that, can you just go in a little more depth? You did a quick note, there's so much awesome stuff here, but that we had pulled back on transit routes and now they're fully staffed and we are back up to running what we had been. Can you tell me more about what's going on with that?
So that's the level of detail I have. I believe Jessica is here, and so Jessica can certainly provide more specificity around what was reestablished on November 1st with the service levels from our transit contractor.
Thanks, Jessica.
Good evening. So we had to cut the frequency of 2 routes. One was the S5, I think, and one was the WE1, or I'm sorry, the N3 and the WE1. And that was due to driver shortages. So we have gotten back to a comfortable point of having enough drivers to where we were able to reestablish both of those routes to full service.
Good job, thanks. Glad you. I wish all our new drivers luck and many years as part of our team.
Mayor, that concludes our report.
All right, thank you.
I personally am very thankful for the annual report. It's been 10 years. It looks
Yes.
great. It was very helpful, actually. We asked our boards and commissions to do it. I'm glad we did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are, it's almost 7 o'clock and we're done with the manager's report. We're moving along tonight. Okay, we have a few public hearings. The first is a public hearing to consider closing a portion of an unopened right-of-way on Clayton Avenue adjacent to 77 Hansel Avenue, and in a spirit of staff covering lots of different things, we have Jessica back to talk about this.
Yes, thank you. This is a very straightforward right-of-way closure request. Buncombe County Rescue Squad is the applicant for this request. They own a property at 77 Hansel Avenue. And this is actually a request related to rectifying an error on the original plat that shows Clayton Avenue in a slightly different location than it actually is. So really what this request is to rectify that for the applicant. There are no utility conflicts or future transportation uses of this right-of-way. And this is a graphic of the closure. You can see where Clayton Avenue is in the real world and where it had it on the plat is not actually where it's supposed to be. So we are closing this right-of-way, and therefore that area will become part of the parcel. And this is looking to the east, and you can see Clayton Avenue is actually up to the left-hand side where there's cars parked. The Technical Review Committee reviewed this in October and recommended approval of the closure, as well as the Multimodal Transportation Commission also recommended that the closure be approved. So our proposed motion is to adopt a resolution to permanently close a portion of unopened right-of-way on Clayton Avenue adjacent to 77 Hansel Avenue.
So moved.
So, yeah, this is a public hearing, so we don't have anyone signed up to speak, so I'll open the public hearing and I'll close the public hearing and I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adopt a resolution to permanently close a portion of the unopened right-of-way on Clayton Avenue adjacent to 77 Hansel Avenue.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Jessica. All right, next, we've got Tony talking to us on a public hearing on issuance of not to exceed $26 million in general obligation refunding bonds. Tony, explain to us what we're doing here.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tony McDowell, Finance Director. I don't have any slides like Jessica had, just a little brief information before I turn it back over to you all to
Here,
conduct the
Maggie's
public.
going to take that off the screen.
Okay.
Brad, does this take 2 votes, this one?
Yes.
1, 2? Okay, thank you.
We have to have separate votes per bond rules.
Now we're ready.
So Again, there'll be a public hearing followed by council action on the issuance of our 2023 general obligation refunding bonds. And so it's actually a timely agenda item tonight, ties into the council work session we had earlier where we discussed the city's process around issuing debt and how we typically issue short-term bank loans as we begin projects, and as we spend more money, we convert that short-term bank loan into a long-term debt financing, and that's what we're here to do tonight. It's a statutorily required step by the local government commission. The bonds you all are issuing tonight are in association with the $74 million general obligation bond referendum that was approved by voters in November of 2016. The city took out a short-term 3-year bank loan in the amount of $25 million in 2020. That bank loan is coming due in June of 2023. And so in order to stay on schedule to refund that short-term bank loan and turn this into a long-term debt financing, we're asking council to take action tonight. We'll go from here to the local government commission in January, where hopefully they will approve the debt issuance as well. And then in February, we'll go out to the markets and sell this debt. So happy to answer any questions or turn it back over to the mayor for the public hearing.
Okay, we don't have anyone to sign up to speak on this, so I'll open and close the public hearing. Do I have questions, comments, or a motion to approve B1, consideration of adopting a bond order authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $26 million general obligation refunding bonds of the city of Asheville, North Carolina?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm also happy to motion to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Asheville, North Carolina, providing for the issuance of the City of Asheville, North Carolina General Obligation Refunding Bond Series 2023.
Sandra, second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Okay, and then last on our public hearing agenda is a public hearing to consider amending. Will, do you need me to talk slowly? I know he's listening from some other room. Will Palmquist, paging Will Palmquist. Public hearing to consider amending the conditional zoning ordinance number 4625 for property located at 175 Lyman Street from mixed-use expansion / conditional zone to commercial expansion / conditional zone. I talked really slow. He's not racing down the hall to us. We'll just wait just a second here. He's probably stuck in the stairwell.
I'm gonna start having a backup for him.
Well, I was trying to, I know they're,
He's
they
usually
didn't
so
expect us
timely.
to go so fast on that, the rest of it.
Is it possible for us to discuss the housing trust fund policy?
Yeah, all right, good idea. Let's jump ahead. Well, wait, we don't have Sasha here either. So we could start taking public comment at the end of our agenda. Yeah, no.
Once you open it. I think so.
Yeah?
Yes.
Should we go ahead? Okay. Hey, we're going to start taking public comment for folks signed up at the end of the agenda. So the first person signed up to speak there is Paul Howell, and Mr. Howell has folks ceding their time to him to speak, which means the people ceding their time don't get to speak. So you're ceding to Mr. Howell, which means he has 10 minutes to speak on, Maggie will get you ready.
Thank you, Maggie. Okay. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, city manager, city attorney, and city staff member. I come here today to address my concerns regarding the handling of this newly established selection committee for the Juneteenth celebration in Asheville by y'all's employee, John Philman. Evidently, with the support of this council, city manager, and attorney, this has been done. Okay. I come before everybody in attendance and all those listening and viewing elsewhere to make it known that before Juneteenth became a national cash cow, that members of the local black community, no big business, no big company, no organization, just regular people from the community have for the past 11 years unfailingly planned, produced, and executed, and with assistance from the community, covered the expenses of celebrating Juneteenth in Asheville and Hillcrest Apartments the last 2 years, without an inkling of attention, exposure, nor assistance or funding from the city council nor the city event manager, only to be uprooted and pushed aside through a supposedly created selection committee for this event. Why is this thing doing it? Okay, let's pull back the blinds and take a closer look at this alleged selection committee. Y'all must first understand that John Philman met with Thomas Boyd, CEO of TOP, which is True Opportunist Promotions, about bringing Juneteenth downtown for the city. Told him to get a nonprofit to be his face and he would be good to go. From day one, John was talking business with a businessman who maintained his stance as a businessman throughout the event to its completion. After acquiring the YMI as his face and members of JOA Community Committee to assist in producing, planning, and executing the event, it was made clear to the members of the committee, which I am one, that Thomas was operating as a businessman outside of the committee. He was representing TOP and would pay us for our services. There was an issue that Thomas had with John about the wording in the contract John had drawn up, which stated that the city were looking for someone to come in and plan and produce and execute a city-owned event, which wasn't flying with Thomas. So Thomas stated that the city doesn't own Juneteenth, the community does, and he wasn't going forward until he spoke with the mayor. Well, enter city manager Deborah Campbell and city attorney Brad Branham. And to John's dismay and chagrin, they agreed with Thomas and had John rewrite the contract. I guess being corrected in front of people that he looked at as being beneath him resulted in his begrudgingly proceeding in his position to get Juneteenth done with the minimum assistance, yet plenty of demands and creating obstacles rather than assisting in removing them. So this is how the city works. You have an employee that gets his hand caught in the proverbial cookie jar, gets chastised by his superiors, yet is allowed to continue his position to complete the task without fulfilling his duties in a professional and satisfactory manner. His disdain and vexation with Thomas as well as with the JOA Community Committee, so much so that he meant that a selection committee for no other festival outside of Juneteenth was established to see who shall plan, produce, and execute the Juneteenth event for 2023. This may have made sense had we not been doing it for the past 11 years. How come there isn't a selection committee for the Ingalls Independence Day celebration, which just happens to be planned, produced, and executed by the city of Asheville in partnership with the Downtown Association every year? It sounds like monopolization to me. Explain to me how someone can offer a proposal for an event that the city has attached themselves to. They can't, because the city event manager isn't going to allow them to be replaced in getting all that money from Ingalls. Where's the selection committee for this event? There isn't one. Where's the partnership with JOA Community Committee? There isn't one. John couldn't offer a partnership to us because we wasn't at the forefront. TOP was at the forefront. Okay. I guess it has to be a very uncomfortable feeling to have misjudged someone based on their appearance, where they live, and the color of their skin and level of their education. Yet you couldn't get the best of them, so the selection committee was formed. What were the qualifications to be on this committee, other than being on a city staff, a city committee, a city commission already? I mean, where was the invitation to join the committee? Posted. Not on the regular page where all the other committees are posted. I mean, it wasn't there. I checked. The secretiveness of this whole entire matter screams illegal, and the investigation is needed. An event of this magnitude has no business being handled behind closed doors out of the community's sight. This man disrespected our event, our people, and our team in front of Darian Blue and Marcus Kirkman, who happens to be gone now. Came in and introduced himself as being part of the Equity and Illusion team here in Asheville. But come to find out, he's on the selection committee. So you end up getting up all this information for us that we done shared, thanking you with the Equity Commission, and you gonna help us. You ain't help us at all. Y'all used that against us and you crapped on us to get us out of the way. Well, anyway, by saying in front of these men and somebody from Vienna, Virginia, that's on the line in the dark, said our event was nothing but people selling hot dogs and a rap concert. I guess he didn't hear Ms. Simmons when she spoke on the history of Juneteenth. Or Dr. Randall Johnson when he spoke on the advancements made in medical advancements, physical and mental medical advancement. Or he didn't hear change agent Philip Cooper speak on the restoration after addiction and incarceration. Brittany Bettany spoke on credit repair and traps. Also, she invited everyone that chose to give her a call for a free consultation. And surely as loud as our host Michael Hayes was, I don't know how he missed the knowledge he dropped the entire event. These proposals in this portal is another joke because one form states that they were accepting applications from nonprofits to plan, produce, and execute the event. Yet the form we were sending in was to contract with a nonprofit to develop, manage, and execute the event. This slowed our entering our proposal into the portal because John wouldn't answer our call to tell us what was up with this form. We was under the impression that we was putting in the form to be the nonprofit to manage, produce, and execute the event. But that's not what the form we turned in said. So our form didn't get all the way in, but John said he's gonna show it to the selection committee. Probably didn't. Okay. Whew. Excuse me, I'm just so hot, I'm trying to keep myself cool.
I know, it's really hot in here.
It is hot in here.
I'm looking
Okay,
at
so
Maggie
now-
because she's our master temperature.
It's not just you.
Why would and what would a selection committee be needed for to approve who a nonprofit chooses to work with? That don't make no sense. Too many things on there adding up. I mean, it's one thing to post and say that y'all are holding requests for proposals from nonprofits to manage it, and then another thing to get somebody a form and have them send in saying that they want a contract with the nonprofit. Thank you, that might keep my teeth in. Because they're getting hot, melting and stuff. Okay. All right. Amazing. It's amazing. Y'all urban renewed us out of our homes and the generational wealth. Y'all bulldozed and built over our historic buildings, businesses, and landmarks, effectively removing any trace of their existence. And now y'all swoop in to take Juneteenth away from the only people that cared enough to celebrate it before there was funding for it. While in the same action, talking reparations. Perhaps y'all's reparations should begin with the cessation of y'all continuing to take from us while you continue to procrastinate about what to give us. Finally, what does Juneteenth mean to me? I bring this up because it was asked of John and Chris, and the only thing they could say was they went to an event. It means freedom. Freedom of expansion. Expansion from all that our ancestors were prohibited and restricted from enjoying while in servitude. Expansion in reading, writing, teaching, building and living in their own homes, owning their own businesses, earning wages for their own work and their goods. Freedom of movement, no longer having families separated and sold, yet to enjoy this freedom of expansion while under constant attack from those that didn't recognize nor respect their freedom, just as it still is today. Yet we continue to move forward,
Thank you.
in unity on this day, continue that expansion that began on June 19, 1965.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to shift back to finish our public hearings. And we see that Will is here.
Actually, there was one more person signed up to speak.
Oh, no, we're definitely going to come back to all the people that signed up to speak. Sorry, we're filling that in while we waited for Will to come because we moved through our public hearing so quickly he was lost in the building somewhere.
No, Mayor, you joked and said he was trapped in a stairwell.
He was actually trapped.
Really was, and we've got some more that are trapped, so
Oh,
we're getting them
okay.
out.
Yeah, because the door's
Coming
locked.
Yeah.
It sounds scarier than it was, but.
You were literally trapped in a stairwell?
Yeah.
The doors are locked, I guess, from the inside, because we don't want to wait for the elevator, so, but thank you for your patience. And glad to be here this evening. Mayor, members of council, Will Palmquist with Planning and Urban Design Department. I'll be presenting this conditional zoning request for the project known as Woodfield Stoneyard, which is an amendment to an existing conditional zoning located at 175 Lyman Street. Here you can see the location of the site at the corners of Lyman Street. This aerial imagery is a little outdated, but it shows the site that is currently vacant. The former Carolina Coal and Ice building has been demolished. The RAD-TIP Transportation Improvement Project has been completed, as well as the Wilma Dykeman Greenway, which is located along the river. And then this chart just compares the previously approved conditional zoning from 2017 in the middle column to the proposed project on the right. So you can kind of get a sense of what was previously approved versus what the amendment would approve with the new zoning, which would be commercial expansion conditional zone. Due to the size of the project being more than 50 residential units, you can see it's almost a doubling of the number of residential units, additional parking spaces, including bicycle parking, and similar height and impervious surface between the previously approved project and the proposed project. The future land use as shown in the Living Asheville Comprehensive Plan is traditional corridor, and no change in that would be required for this conditional zoning request. And then the site plan for the project, which shows outlined a new 6-story building, which consists of 2 levels of parking above or below 4 levels of multifamily residential, 263 residential units total, 13 of which equates to 5% would be affordable at 80% of area median income for a minimum of 10 years. About 4,500 square feet of retail and artist studio space located in 5 different spaces along the north elevation of the project. A total of 367 parking spaces, 85 of which would be available for public use. Entrance to that parking deck is off of both sides of Lyman Street at the north of the site, and then to the west. There's also a loading and move-in access area to the building just to the south of that parking garage entrance as well. No new sidewalks are proposed for this project. You can see outlined in this red is the existing sidewalk, which is about, kind of varies, but a minimum 5 feet wide, and that was completed just a few years ago as part of the RAD-TIP project. So the sidewalks in that area are already very new. There is a proposed plaza and courtyard feature in the northwest corner of the site, which is proposed to incorporate features such as stormwater mitigation with the location of a bioswale or rain garden or similar type feature. Landscape plan includes required landscape elements such as street trees and parking garage screening, as well as the tree canopy preservation standards, which are going to be met through a combination of new tree plantings and payment in fee of lieu. There are no open space requirements in the Rad River zoning district, which is what this project also conforms to per the code in the commercial expansion district. So then next are just a couple of perspectives of the project site and the proposed building. This one is looking southeast from the French Broad River. You can kind of see that courtyard feature, and then the north facade where those retail studio spaces would be located, and then some recessed areas of the building, such as this upper level courtyard as well. And then a view looking down Lyman Street, kind of heading towards the river. and that recently constructed roundabout to give a view of the north elevation of the building, with some suggested design features like a potential mural, and other balconies and other features such as that. As far as the conditions of the project, as previously stated, 5% of the units, totaling 13 units, would be designated at or below 80% area median income for a minimum of 10 years. A minimum of one of the commercial spaces will be made available at below market rate in perpetuity, and 80 parking spaces total will be available for public use. And there are a number of technical modifications being sought through the conditional zoning process, which mostly relate to the layout and design of the building. This includes a height, both number of stories and feet in excess of the maximum height allowed in the Rad River District of 4 stories and 55 feet, a reduction of the setback along the northern Lyman Street to 4 feet instead of the required 15 feet, impervious surface totaling 85% in excess of the maximum 80% standard, no new sidewalks being proposed where typically an 8-foot wide sidewalk with 6-foot wide planting strip would be required. And then a couple design elements, building design requirements that are in the Rad River District, such as that the pedestrian entrance spacing is in excess of the maximum 50 feet on both the primary elevations facing Lyman Street, and then also that the street-facing facade length is in excess of the 200 feet maximum for both of those elevations as well. The project was approved with conditions by the Technical Review Committee. It was reviewed informally by the Asheville Area Riverfront Redevelopment Commission, where the project received overall support with some comments given. It was formally reviewed by the Design Review Committee, as the project is located in the Riverfront Design Overlay District, where it was approved with conditions relating to the design of the project. One of those conditions was that the project return to the DRC for an informal review, which happened at the next meeting, where the DRC kind of confirmed that those approved conditional elements of the project had been met. And then also the project was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission at its November 2nd meeting, with the condition that a minimum of one of the commercial spaces be made available at below market rate in perpetuity, which the applicant agreed to. Regarding the project's compliance with the Living Asheville Comprehensive Plan, it is consistent with the future land use category of traditional corridor. It also supports a number of goals in the plan, such as relating to infill development and growth areas, increasing the supply of affordable housing, supporting opportunities for the creative sector to affordably live, work, and share their work, and also through the implementation of low-impact development and green infrastructure strategies. Furthermore, the project also supports the overall character described in the Wilma Dykeman Riverway Master Plan regarding the River Arts District, which is seen as a thriving mixed-use district where artisans and those interested in living along the river can work and live. Staff concurs with the Planning and Zoning Commission and recommends approval of the proposed conditional zoning. That concludes my presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions. You also have representatives of the project with us here this evening.
Can I ask you a technical question?
Yes.
It's over here, Sage. Thanks.
Sorry.
Thank you, Will. So the list of technical modifications, a couple slides back. This is a kind of a long list, but it seems to me the story height, the pedestrian entrance, these last few in the end there, is this all related to what I understand? I heard, I think, in a design review meeting. Originally, that's approved, this was a 1-story parking deck. The flood levels have changed or something, and then I think they had to go up another story. Like, this is all related to 2 stories of parking, right?
Yeah, a lot of this is driven by the design of the building, which I should have mentioned is located in a 100-year floodplain. So the habitable floors of the building have to be out of that floodplain area. So the logical design is to have the building and those units on top of structured parking, which is what the proposal is.
Did I hear correctly in a previous meeting that something had changed with the previous approval and the floodplain and the level of water or something that?
I believe that is accurate. I know they remap those regularly, and I think some changes had been made to the mapping of the floodplain that affected the design. I don't know to what extent it drove the design to change substantially. I know we have the civil engineer with us tonight who could probably speak more to that as well.
Okay.
I believe that is correct.
I'll have some more comments. That's all my questions right now.
I have my regular question, which is, did we ask this developer if they could include solar to help us meet our carbon reduction goals?
That was not explicitly discussed. I know the topic of electric vehicle charging stations came up throughout the meeting, and the project is prepared to be able to expand the number of recharge stations for vehicles, but I'm not aware of solar panel either installation or the ability to do that in the future at this point.
Thank you. I think we are going to have to probably start to expect electric vehicle charging stations, because I'm seeing all of these articles about how electric vehicles are being plugged in across sidewalks, and it becomes an ADA issue and also a mobility issue and a land use issue. We don't want to have a bunch of plans for places to not only store cars, but also to store electric cables. Tree fee in lieu. Do we have in place a tree fee in lieu plan so that we can actually use that fee to plant trees?
You want to hop in, Brad?
We do, to a certain degree. The tree fee in lieu is specifically incorporated as part of the Tree Save ordinance, which council adopted some time ago. As part of that ordinance, there is also a designation of, dependent upon where the tree fee in lieu is incurred, what part of the city, the requirement is that those funds collected are utilized back in that same district, I believe is the designation we used, which just defines a geographical portion of the city for new plantings, new tree plantings within that particular district. So we have obviously, I think 5, rough districts, which covers a fairly large amount of city, but depending upon where the fee in lieu is collected, those monies are collected and reapportioned to that particular district for new tree plantings or
So
tree
we
save.
might be able to look at the heat island impact of tree canopy loss on the south side, and that could be proximal.
Yeah, I can't recall exactly where the geographic districts are and where this one would fall into, but certainly that is defined within our ordinance, and I know we have those issues throughout the city.
Okay, and my last one is this. I appreciate the on-site stormwater mitigation, working with neighbors to address public benefits like public parking. We've gotten a letter of support from local business around that, but also local business invitation for commercial space. Honestly, I'm just glad to see it's housing and not a lodging use, though there is issue around the affordability, if that is actually the case. So this site is 3/10 of a mile from a transit stop and the River Arts District Rad Tip corridor. So I'm curious if more affordability might have been allowed if we had gotten to that height density, which isn't taken advantage of. But more importantly, is it possible that this is going to be short-term rentals? Is it restricted in any way? And would we be able to ask for deed restrictions for it to not be short-term rentals, so it's not ultimately a lodging use?
To answer your first question, there are currently restrictions on the ordinance books that would prevent this or any new development of this size or at all residential development from becoming whole home short-term rental. We do, as you know, allow for homestay permits to be issued within the city. But in terms of whole home rental, the prohibition in this particular zoning district is in place, and it would already apply to this particular development without any new action by the city or council.
Thank you for that clarity.
Just while we're on the broader topic, I'm hopeful, and we'll probably talk about this more at our retreat, that we can move towards a multifamily housing process that includes a community benefits table to create a by right process like we did for our hotel ordinance that includes a lot of these items that we're talking about here tonight, so that we can create expectations up front about what we'd like to see through a community benefits table, and then create a more efficient way to move multifamily through that process. I mean, right now what we're doing is this system does allow us to kind of take other things into consideration. For example, this project has a whole bunch of public parking And we need public parking in the RAD, so that's a benefit that another project might not bring, but we might not need. So, there's pros and cons, but I'm hopeful we'll move towards a community benefit concept for multifamily housing. Are you about to tell me how long it's going to take?
Soon.
'Cause we can do it pretty quickly.
A while.
I agree. And it's a great segue to what I was going to comment on. I reached out to the development team. We had a discussion about this. And I encouraged them to look at the hotel moratorium or the hotel overlays community benefits table, because I sense that that is what I'm hearing. We're going to be trying to shift into that kind of approach. And when I looked at that table myself and did the math, I mean, I'm the Riverfront Commission liaison. I'm talk about the river a lot. And time and time again, the biggest need right now has been parking. So we don't have this table to look at now, and if we did for housing, parking might be on it, some of these better community benefits. So I'm personally uncomfortable with the 5% affordability. I've never supported something with such a small percentage of affordability, but we also can't require it. The state kind of binds our hands. So I'm looking at other ways that this is supporting the community. I think that parking, the reduced retail space cost is actually, those are benefits. And I think the closer we get to this benefit table, the more we'll see projects like this that have been touching on some of the things we need. And I want to share, too, that this has not happened before, but everyone I talked to about this project, neighbors, business associations, nearby businesses, all shared a common sentiment that they were able to reach out to this developer and be able to talk with them, share their concerns, and get some ideas and stuff on the table, which I thought was kudos to the development team. I don't know that we've had them develop in our community before. But it made me also want to push a little more. And something has been bothering me of late that is very anecdotal. We don't have data to support this, so I'll just start with that. I'm a housing advocate. I believe we have a shortage of supply. I believe some of our affordability issues are tied to that lack of supply. It's not the only reason we have an affordability crisis, but it's one of them. So I'm inclined to support these large projects. Where my concern is starting to brew is this anecdotal feeling that people are moving to Asheville faster than we can build. And so when these projects come to us and they need special permission, I wish we could say, sure, but only if you can rent to our locals. And we can't say that. We don't have that right. It's not a tool in our toolbox. But when I see and hear that some development teams are meeting with community members and businesses nearby are feeling heard, I want to encourage those types of developers to try some new ways, some grassroots ways maybe, before you go leasing nationally or putting up a website that coming soon in Asheville is this beautiful new complex on the river. Maybe we have meetings locally. Maybe we have partnerships with housing agencies or something that we can do to help get the people in Asheville that are desperate for housing into these places before they're Californians and Texans, and no offense if that's where you moved from. But my point is, I'm just getting concerned. As much as we build, if 80% of them are going to folks that aren't already here, are we creating a problem? And part of this is why we're also looking at missing middle. Like, this is a big complex. We've got single family, we've got big complexes, and we don't have that missing middle. And I'm kind of brewing a concern that I wanted to share with the community and my fellow colleagues, that I hope we can get creative in this area, because there are not rules that allow us to do that.
Brad's taking notes for the community benefits table.
I made sure to talk with legal before this, before
Yeah.
I misstep, because I don't, we are restricted in these things. I can't say to this developer, I need our locals here, and please do it. We can't contract that. So it's more of an encouragement and a conversation I think this community should start having, and what ways we can be creative to resolve that. Yep, and that was it.
Will's not quite done with this presentation. You got a couple
Thank
more
you.
slides to
Oh,
go.
no,
So.
I'm all set.
He's done.
Oh, you okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we've got.
We didn't hear from the
Well,
developer. if we need to.
okay. Are you done?
I am all set. Yep, are there any more questions?
Okay, because the last slide's not up.
Oh,
but
sorry, I just flipped back to this one.
Okay, there you
Concur with planning.
go. Okay, right, okay. Okay, so if anyone has any other questions for Will right now, just ask them. Otherwise, we
I have
were.
a question
open the
for
public-
not Will.
Not Will, okay, you're let
Do
off
we
the hook.
know why the planning and zoning was not unanimous on this?
I believe there was one vote that felt uncomfortable with the affordability limit.
Yes. Also not something they can govern, right?
And one thing I would like to know, are the,
Are you asking Will?
yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay. Are the owners that basically are building, are they here?
Yes,
Yes.
they're here.
Okay.
Do you want to hear from them? Do you have a
Yes.
question for them?
Yes,
Okay.
uh-huh.
Shoot, go ahead.
Ask them to rent to locals.
Okay, that's right.
I understand I'm not supposed to touch this.
Yeah, don't
Can I
touch
put
the
this down?
monitor.
Okay, you got any ideas for renting to locals? First.
Thanks.
Yes, you
Shall I
do?
answer that question?
Oh, you can go ahead and answer it now.
Well, Vice Mayor, my name is Brian Schick with Woodfield Development. This would be our second project in Asheville. We're pushing 20 years in North Carolina as a developer. This actually is would be our second project in the River Arts District as well. But to get specific to that, before I make some brief overview remarks and introduce our design team that's here, there are quite a number, as you know, fair housing laws that are on the books federally that came into existence for very good reasons in the 1960s. So we are very keenly aware of those and follow those to the letter. And our management companies who oversee these are very keen on that. But there are ways to do that and still focus marketing. It's amazing. When we got into this business, just way back before Al Gore had been on the internet, it's a big deal where you put your apartment if it was on a road. That was the visibility. Then there was the internet. Everybody would go to the internet first and shop their sites. Now it's social media is a huge focus, and we have ways to guide that, to really direct our marketing dollars to social media.
Yeah.
Every single person that comes to our property now has absolutely toured it on the internet. They've absolutely, and they go into the social media and they want to see what the neighbors are saying about it.
Yeah.
Previous neighbors or residents were saying about it. So there are ways to direct that while following to the letter of the law and the spirit of all of our fair housing laws.
And you're going to do something like that for us?
Absolutely.
Okay,
And
thank
then,
you.
and we are doing that absolutely on, I should just step back. We are the developer of what y'all know as the Dave Steele site, or formerly the Radloff site. I think it came before this council 5 times, five
Six,
different,
but who's
6 ordinances. Who's counting?
Apologies for forgetting,
So we
yeah.
picked that up a couple of years ago, and as you all know, we're under construction, and we're very excited about that, notwithstanding all the challenges in the dirt and working in the slummy part of the state. But that has 16,000 feet of retail. This has 4,500 feet. We've been advised, kind of knew it before, you don't come to Asheville with a lot of, as my wife would say, chainy stuff. So there's no fair housing laws on retail. So we're very focused on trying to curate, to use a tired word, really local, authentic type offerings that we know the citizens of Asheville and this region of the state want. And we're certainly doing that on retail, and I think there are ways to do that and to understand where we are. We're here because three big reasons. Asheville, all you've done, all the great offerings. Your city's investment in the River Arts District Transportation Improvement Program is a huge driver in this. This is a private sector developer absolutely responding to that public investment. And we're there because it's a funky, cool arts district. And we're also very aware that it has happened throughout this country that the artists kind of go to the places where there's these neat buildings that need, they don't mind, maybe they're cold and drafty, but they've got these big windows and great light, and they can do their art. And then the private development responds, and they get pushed out. So we're very aware of that. So we're trying to make sure that we keep that area cool and funky, and we honor it. Deborah and I were in Charlotte for a time, and we know what happened in NODA. Charlotte has what used to be an arts district. You'd be hard-pressed to find an artist in that district now. It got pushed out. So we've had these discussions with our neighbors, and speaking of the neighbors, I got to know all of these varied groups down in the River Arts District when we said we're going to close Robert Street. So I met a lot of folks, and it's actually been great. So our one resident neighbor, Patty Torno, who I'm pretty sure is, hi Patty, just got hip replacement. She lives directly across from the site. The River Arts District Business Association, the RADPAC, the River Arts District Artists Association. We got to know them through this challenge where there are these lemons, and we think together we made lemonade by finding a way to get that road kept open at least one lane, and having this site under contract help do that by moving our construction trailer over there, lay down over there, and we helped that owner that we'll buy the site from tear down the buildings that the city and the fire department had deemed unsafe. It's too bad we couldn't save the old coal and ice building. So didn't intend to go into all that, but that's kind of how we got here, how we were attracted to this site. I know y'all have had a long night, and let me just say, this is my first time having the honor to address the council, and thank you for what you do. This is democracy in action, and starting with the pledge and seeing the flag and having y'all patiently listen to all sides of the previous debate. Thank you. This is tough work.
And one other thing I would like to say before you sit, if you're, but I know a lot of people are concerned about the affordability issue, the 5%, but maybe you could give us an idea as to when you build on brownfield and in flood areas, the expenses to build are a whole lot greater than you would have in any other building, a regular building.
Right.
Could you maybe give them an idea of that increase and how that impacts what you can offer as far as
Sure.
affordability?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So just to take you back, the current developer, and I don't pretend to speak for them, got this approved with an ordinance in 2017. So 4 years they had it and could not find a way to get this capitalized. A couple of challenges. One is they didn't have enough density to have enough units, which translates to income, to offset the challenges of the site. It's in a 100-year flood. The flood has increased by 3 feet. We learned at the TRC committee. There's just all the mitigation that we have to go through to take care of the unsuitable soils and the contaminated dirt there. There's a whole more advanced foundation system that has to go into a site such as this. We are finding that on the site we're under construction with. It's even more than we thought from what the geotech showed. Y'all are probably aware of the challenges of the site where they've built a garage on in the South Slope on Cox Street. That developer is now selling that site. It's for sale. The garage is built, but that apartment currently is not going to be built because of the challenges there. So there are site challenges from the brownfield. There's site challenges from the flood. And y'all know this, interest rates have gone up 5 times, and tomorrow at 2 o'clock they're going up again. And construction prices have increased 10% per year consistently. So it translates about $100,000 more per unit that we've seen in just the last 2.5 years. And it costs the same for a 2x4 or a brick or a sheet of drywall for a market unit as it does for an affordable. So that all adds to it. And I'll just volunteer. We plan to be in Asheville for a while to serve on this committee if one is created to, from a private sector standpoint, to talk to you about this table, this benefits thing, and things that the capital markets would respond to. And interestingly, South Carolina's got some unique tools, and I've had occasion to.
We hate hearing South Carolina beats us at anything.
I do have the same question that I was going to ask is like, when we are looking at meeting our carbon reduction goals, we're also talking about resilient neighborhoods. And that means resiliency during crisis for all the people who will live in the housing that you're building. And so that's one of the reasons why I've been asking every single housing development, what's the plan for renewable energy for these new neighbors? Do you have a plan for this development for renewable energy?
Well, we do not have solar panels on the building. We do have chargers, and as I believe Will mentioned, that we are building in capacity to the panel, which is the most critical thing to first dollar to build your panel to scale up as the full adoption of electric vehicles happen. We build these to green standards. It's not the LEED standard. I'm a LEED accredited professional, but we use our association's green standard, which is the NGBS, the National Green Building Standard, through the National Multi-Housing Council. So we do strive for responsibility in sourcing of the material, highly efficient 15 SEER HVAC systems that are far more efficient and sensitive to the environment. But this particular project does not have solar panels or things of that nature. It's not a net zero building by any means.
And then the second thing I would say is I appreciate your naming the concern around artists being displaced from the arts district. As an artist family who moved here in 2006, I was able to buy and work in places that people could also no longer afford, which meant I was gentrifying space. So because this location being in close proximity and down the street from the entrepreneurs who were displaced from the south side, but also Hill Street, what are the kinds of outreach you're doing to address that possibility of making an invitation to have local businesses, entrepreneurs, artists in the commercial space?
That's a good question, and I was invited to be on a panel by the Chamber of Commerce. They had one of their Policy on Tap sessions last summer, And I was one of 4 panelists, and the topic was, getting updates on things going on in development in the River Arts District. I got seated next to Jay Hackett. I never met Jay before. We became fast friends. I frankly was completely ignorant that there was such a thing as Black Wall Street in Asheville. I had learned of the story of what happened in the massacre in Tulsa, and I was really intrigued by that. I followed up with Jay and asked to meet with him, and I told him about something we're doing on a proposed project in Greenville, South Carolina. So this project, Stone Yard, has 5 retail bays. Could be for artists, could be for hard goods retailer, it could be for a restaurant. It's on Lyman, and we intentionally put it where River Arts Place T-bones in, coming up from Patty's Curve Studios. That's where they are. And I volunteered and asked him if he'd be interested in having one of those at below market rent. That's kind of a new concept. We talk about affordable housing for residents, but affordable housing for commercial is something. So we're trying to do our part. He just said, what? And he said, absolutely. So we actually have Bruce, the executive director of Black Wall Street, kindly offered to come speak tonight. He'll speak during the public hearing. And we're crafting a memorandum of understanding. So we actually offered that at the Planning and Zoning Board. Like good poker players, they took those chips and raked them right off the table and put it onto the, as one of the amendments that they voted upon, and asked me how long, and I said in perpetuity. So it was our initiative to create that. So our one thing to have 20% of that commercial space to be at below market rents, to try to do our part to help that group or others, with their mission to help incubate small business, minority businesses.
Thank you for explaining that on the public record. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I have my whole design team here when you get into deliberation. Warren with CDC is here. Our civil engineer, we have our land planners, landscape architect, Lisa, our designer. So y'all had a long night. When you want to get into it, happy to go into more detail than what you saw in the staff report.
Thanks. Okay. Now, are we ready for the public hearing portion, or does anyone have any other questions before we do that? I have 2 people signed up to speak. If you speak, you get 3 minutes. Just watch the light on the lecterns, and the red means stop. The first person signed up to speak is Bruce Waller.
There may be questions at the end, but when we go back to public comment, we'll address it then.
I'm glad you asked, because I wasn't sure either, since I'm kind of new here, so thanks for stepping up and asking.
What's going on, family? How y'all doing? Everybody's good? So touching base with Brian and the team has been pretty dope, actually. When we actually went down there after his initial conversation with Jay, to what does it really look like to be, like talking about the creative piece of what does it look like to be in a space, that was formerly known as Southside, and also what has happened and taken place in this great exodus that took place in Asheville. And the thing is, I'm a transplant, but I'm fully aware, and I've been here for about 12 years, but I'm fully aware of the stuff that has taken place, talking to community members and being a part of the community in various ways. So being one of the founding board members and stepping into the directorial role for Black Wall Street, going to meet Brian and the team, I thought it was really cool, because I'm always vetting, always looking, are you just using it? You know what I'm saying? Am I a token? Am I just a scapegoat to do a certain thing? And I keep that at the very visceral level, at a whole 1,000%, if that's a real thing or not. Am I being utilized that way? But after we really got down to the granular details and really peeling through the layers, this was something that Black Wall Street could really sink into. I mean, we already have the location in the River Arts District, and Black Wall Street, and uncovering the riches that are already here when it comes to entrepreneurship development. And at the visceral level, we deal with dollars and cash registers. We don't do the academia. We don't do all the other different pieces and components. We rely on them as partners, but we're really dealing with how can we support other BIPOC businesses, honestly, Black businesses in the area. So for the retail space and supporting Brian and the team, it's been really cool to see how that has come to be to even now, and also what it looks like for our entrepreneurs to take advantage of this opportunity in River Arts District and support them, and they're able to exceed and win. And so we're still mapping out those details and creating our MOUs, making it super official, but also referral to local people, because I know housing is a thing, and that was one of the things I asked Jay, like, yeah, what we doing about housing? And so when we stopped mapping through, and it's like, okay, the pieces that what they do have available, that we can refer people that are entrepreneurs or artists, because we did start the Artist League in River Arts District to represent our artists in the area. We wanted to make sure that we had a leg with that and a say-so to working and being instrumental in working with Brian and everybody. So just want to support that work, and that we're still mapping through those details and really creating a solid plan that I see as very promising. So I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And then Lucius Wilson.
Hello, my name is Lucius Wilson. I'm the chair of the River Arts District Business Association. I'll be really quick. I'm not with my kids right now, which I really love to be here to support this project. I've talked with Brian Chick a lot. I know that he's available. I know we can talk to him. I know we can push stuff. I understand that we're trying to solve all the problems, but the reality is look at what this site is right now. Look at what this site has been, and the ability to create housing on someone else's dime is something that I think is important, and the ability to work with a developer who is accessible, because they are not always, but not to push too hard. So we push the people that listen to us harder than we push the people that don't listen to us, and is that fair? But we need housing. This is a district that has the ability to withstand this type of project. I've talked with some of you on a personal level. I appreciate all of your work. I appreciate how many times I see you out all the time and away from your families doing the stuff that you do. And just as someone who works in the community, who lives really close, this is a good project, and I'm just asking if you guys can approve it. It would be awesome. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we don't have anyone else signed up to speak on this?
Actually, if Daniel Sue would sign up to talk, if you would give me some time to talk in just a moment, right after, I was supposed to go out to the car.
Yeah, hold on. Oh, so sorry. Yeah, we don't worry. We are still going to do what we call general public comment at the end of the meeting after this item, and we have got a. Yeah, I know. So that was confusing.
Remember, we took a break?
We took a break. We were just filling in there because we didn't, yeah, so we'll definitely, we're good, right out, well, not right out, we have one other item.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Maybe we'll never do that again, because that was so confusing.
You want me to make a motion?
Okay, please, make a motion.
I motion to approve the conditional zoning amendment request for the property located at 175 Lyman Street from mixed-use expansion conditional zone to commercial expansion conditional zone, and find that the request is reasonable, is in the public interest, is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and meets the development needs of the community, in that the request, 1, provides infill development in targeted growth areas, 2, increases the supply of housing, including affordable housing in proximity to schools, transit, and parks, 3, supports opportunities for the creative sector to affordably live, work, and share their work, and 4, implements low-impact development and green infrastructure strategies.
I'll second.
And if I could, I'd add public parking.
And that is on the conditions.
Yes.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments before we vote?
I do have one comment. Just, we talked about how this is a brownfield in a floodplain, and the fact that at any minute we are vulnerable to having a flood that would take all of that very nasty stuff and put it right back into our river. So I think that this is a nice opportunity for a lot of reasons, but it is not easy to do brownfield remediation work in a floodplain. And I think that, like others are saying, I want more affordable housing everywhere, all the time, anytime possible. And some used to say, I can do anything you want, but I can't do everything you want. And I think y'all are doing a lot of really good public benefits with this project. So I just wanted to add that in.
That's it.
One other comment we may want to look at in the future is the zoning still correct here? The height restriction is 4 stories, not going to work here anymore, and is that what's really playing out here?
Because of the rise in
the rise in the water and flooding and what we know to be true, and yeah. Anyways,
Will's noting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys can help us fix that. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have one item left on our agenda, a resolution revising the Housing Trust Fund policy before we get to public comment at the end of our meeting. And Sasha Vertinsky is here to present this item to us. It has been a long day. And so, can you try to resist this heading?
She's got a big presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. It's my fault. I heard you calling for Will and then me, and I grabbed Will and I said, let's go down the stairs. And I ran down the stairs. We got locked out. So it's my fault, so I apologize. I was
really
panicking.
We did a very expensive remodel of that elevator. You should use it.
Well, I thought it'd be faster to run down the stairs, but it was not faster. So I'm
You were
here to
stuck
talk
as
about Housing Trust Fund policy revisions. The Housing Trust Fund was established in 2000, and as a result of allocations, we currently have $7.65 million in the Housing Trust Fund. We wanted to make revisions at this point in time to respond to the fluctuating market conditions, some of which you just heard about. We want to further align with the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency requirements and adjust some scoring criteria as well. We also are taking this opportunity to align with the Buncombe County Affordable Housing Program process. They just opened yesterday for grants, and we will be opening later this week or next Monday. And there are some additional recommendations that we'll be bringing to you next year as well. So just quickly as some background, the Housing Trust Fund was established by City Council in 2000 as a tool to increase the availability of affordable housing in our community. It previously had an annual cycle, then it evolved into evolving, like kind of accepting applications on an on-rolling basis. So we're going to try going back to a major once-a-year cycle, possibly twice a year. Through the budget process, City Council generally approves about $500,000 every year. We've put money from the bonds into the fund as well. $5 million were put in there in 2017, and then City Council just approved a transfer of $6 million a couple months ago. And so the current balance is 7.65, as I said before. And between 2001 and 2019, the Housing Trust Fund loaned approximately $15 million and produced approximately 1,300 affordable units. So currently, eligible uses for the Housing Trust Fund include for sale and rental housing, including land acquisition and hard costs, converting or adaptive reuse of existing non-residential structures for housing, purchase and rehab of existing substandard housing units, also purchasing and rehabilitating or conversion of market rate units to affordable housing. It also can be used for manufactured housing and modular construction, and it also can be used for down payment loans as long as funds are not forgiven. That's the current standards. There are some restrictions. Obviously, they're not, maybe this isn't obvious, but they're not available for individuals to use on their own house. So we're really looking to produce affordable housing for other folks. A minimum of 20% of the units for the project have to be affordable. Currently, if affordable units have been pledged for the city in exchange for a density bonus or conditional zoning, just like you just did this evening, right now you can't come back and ask for housing trust funds for that same amount of units. We usually ask for our developers to add additional number of units if you're asking for funding. Rehabilitation of single-family homes and duplexes. Projects have to be located within the city, and currently pre-development expenses are not an eligible use. So as I started to talk about before, we want to revise this policy now because we are seeing construction costs are just skyrocketing right now. In our current, we have caps in our policy that really limit how much money we can loan out. And we also want to add additional underwriting criteria to evaluate proposals. And again, we want to align with the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. That's the agency that evaluates tax credit projects. So some of the bigger projects we get in our community are applying to both for tax credits and to the Housing Trust Fund. So it makes sense for our requirements to be the same as that agency. And again, we want to align with the county cycle. So just really quickly, our proposed schedule for Housing Trust Fund applications. We will open the cycle in December. The application deadline would be in February. We'll have initial review by the HCD Committee, Housing and Community Development Committee, in March, with final recommendations in April by that committee, and they would then come to City Council in April for funding decisions. And this also lines up very nicely with the tax credit process. So by mid-May is the tax credit deadline. So it helps those projects to go to the North Carolina Finance Agency if they have council's blessing, either by zoning if they need it, and also funding. So here, there are a lot of little tiny policy changes, but here are the biggest nuggets of the policy changes. We are proposing to remove the $1 million cap on requests and instead use 10% of the total estimated project costs as a cap. This is a similar cap that Buncombe County is using. 7 out of the last 11 approved applications were over $1 million, so it's not something we're really holding to these days, and it doesn't seem to be a realistic number. And it also lets us be more responsive to those changing conditions in the housing market. We also have an existing cap per unit, subsidy per unit of $20,000. And as you just heard, with those, big change in costs, that is no longer a realistic number at all. And so we actually just want to take that cap out and just instead consider the per subsidy unit as a metric that we're looking at, but it's not a cap per se. And that's also in line with something that Buncombe County does as well. And I guess one last note is we see a real variation in that per unit subsidy. Like, so for tax credit projects that have a lot more layers of funding, they tend to be lower subsidies, whereas a private developer who's not getting other big sources of funding might have a higher subsidy amount. Just a few more. We are adding averaging incomes into this mix, which is something you can do for tax credit applications, and it also allows a developer to get some higher incomes, not higher that aren't affordable, but also really dig deeper into the lower incomes. So if, say, your entire project needs to average 60% AMI, you can have some that are above that, but then you also you're reaching 30% AMI as well. So it allows us to get a little bit more income diversity within developments. We are proposing some changes to the scoring criteria, which I'll go over in a second, and just adding in some additional underwriting criteria. So just very quickly, I'm not going to go through every single piece of this, but AHAC, our Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, has considered these policy revisions twice, first in November and then at their retreat last week. Housing and Community Development Committee also have looked at this twice, and they reviewed it just last Tuesday and approved those revisions. And so here we are at City Council for our final review. On December 1st, AHAC, they had a retreat and they had a very long discussion. Councilwoman Mosley was there for all of it. So we talked a lot about proposed policy changes in the scoring rubric. Generally, some themes were that the scoring rubric has room for improvement. It's understood this is one factor in decision making. It's not the deciding factor for all decisions. It would benefit from a much more comprehensive look. The AHAC volunteered to help with that and to really do a really in-depth look at it, but also needs community input as a part of that process as well. And also that the level of subsidy that's needed to support affordable housing is substantial, especially for projects serving lower AMIs or if they have longer affordability periods. So I put their motion in here word for word. Basically, they recommended approval of all the text changes. They made some recommendations to the scoring matrix, which I'll go over in just the next slide or two, which staff adopted. They also committed, as I said, to doing a kind of in-depth look at the scoring rubric. So here's the scoring criteria and what we're proposing. So just taking out the per unit subsidy out of the scoring matrix we talked about, do you just bump these numbers up? Does it make sense? And it's hard to really judge what's the right number. And I think we need more time and more data collection to really make, if we were going to put this in the scoring matrix, make a good choice around that. Again, we will still be reporting on it, and it'll be in our staff reports, and it'll be considered as a part of the decisions. Number of bedrooms. Now, this is interesting. So for a long time, we have operated under this assumption, and I think it's actually a good assumption, that we need a lot of one-bedrooms in our community. I saw some recent census data from the 2020 census, and we have many fewer one-bedroom units and one-bedrooms and efficiencies than one- or two-bedroom households. So it's, generally speaking, we have a shortage. But there has been a concern recently brought up about housing for family units. So we don't really have the data to propose the correct scoring measurement here. We will still report on it. I think housing providers know, and if you're doing a big project, many of them are doing market studies, they know the need. So it's something, again, we'll report on, but we just took it out of the scoring matrix. And then lastly, we added bonus points in for setting aside units for housing choice vouchers. So that's beyond just accepting vouchers, it's actually setting aside those units. The HCD committee reviewed all of this on December 6th and voted in favor of it unanimously. So staff is recommending approval of these changes. I don't want to repeat everything I just said to you. I will, just to point out a couple things. Additionally, we are, one of the additions we made is that if you're rehabilitating single-family homes and duplexes, it could be an allowable use. We kind of said you have to do at least 4 units. So there might be some, like the CLT or some other organizations that just want to do more modest projects, and that we've got existing housing that we want to keep affordable. That makes sense. So we added that in. And everything else I've already talked about. We're aligning our vacancy rates with NCHFA, so that's what that is about. Just making sure our numbers are in line with industry standards. There are some future affordable housing policy changes and considerations we've talked about, both here in this chamber and at the HCD committee, and staff will be working on those in next year. Things like, some of these items are like funding for site readiness program, so funding pre-development expenses, which we don't fund right now, down payment assistance, land acquisition in previously redlined areas, and goals for reaching lower AMIs in those areas as well, and then voucher set-asides, so going beyond just the points we have, but can we start requiring them? We think we can do it legally, but how does that work with developers? So we really want to use data to make these changes and are planning on updating the housing needs assessment next year as well. So I think that concludes my presentation, and we have a suggested motion, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
I just want to share how incredibly thankful I am for you and your work, Sasha, and your whole team. This is like rapid fire. We just put you on housing this year. You've wrangled AHAC, HCD. I mean, like, it's amazing. I don't want that to be lost. It's a big undertaking what you've done here, and you got it to us by the end of the year, like you said. I just want to acknowledge that.
And also to HCD for working on this.
Yeah.
You guys spent a lot.
And we made HCD the pilot for this boards and commissions and the work planning and to send it back to AHAC. I mean, it's remarkable what's happened in such a short period of time. I don't have anything else to add. I've reviewed it so many times.
Rachel would get some credit there.
Yes.
I do have a question,
Many
but
people.
can we take it back to the last slide?
Sure.
I do appreciate the expeditious nature of this coming forward, as promised before the end of the year. I also heard legally feasible for us to make sure that they're voucher accepting, but we weren't sure how it was going to work with developers. And so I have some curiosity around that. We saw what Charlotte was doing with essentially making sure that people weren't going to be excluded from housing because of how they paid their rent, veteran vouchers, housing vouchers, child support payments, in city-funded or municipally, funded housing, which this does. And I've talked to some other municipal electeds across the state, and they said, you don't have to do this big thing, just accept 100% of vouchers for everything that you subsidize.
I see. Yeah, I was saying it's legally, I think we could require, I was talking about requiring vouchers versus accepting. There's a difference there.
Yeah,
Does that
so a
make sense?
set aside and actually taking them instead of saying, yeah, we'll accept them.
Yeah.
They're two different things.
Right.
Right? And so if you have a rent rate, which is in our area very likely to be above the value of the voucher, even if the developer accepts, you don't have to accept a voucher for a lesser rent. So it may or may not do any good, but a set aside is saying you will accept a voucher for less than the fair market or whatever the rental rate. So one of the reasons that we have all of these vouchers out there is there are even developers who will accept them, but they don't have to accept them at a lower rate.
So what I'm
And I will
hearing is
say-
we're
or
not
just-
doing that yet.
Or can I just add one piece of information? So we do have a non-discrimination clause in our housing trust fund, and we are writing it into our agreements. So that part, we are already doing. So I just want to make sure that was clear.
So
The source of.
because we have a recommendation from the Human Relations Commission that we would consider action on making sure people weren't excluded from access to housing based on how they pay their rent, are we doing that with what we are seeing today?
So essentially, they're technically not being excluded for how they paid their rent. It's what they're offering to pay is less than the rental rate.
I understand that. And also, we see so many projects that come before us and say 50% of them will accept vouchers.
Accept is the operative word. They're basically saying, yeah, we'll take them, but they don't have to take them if someone else comes in and is willing and able to pay the market rate. Hence, the word set aside. So set aside is saying, we'll take 5 below market rate, when just accepting, they don't have to. You see the distinction?
I do. And I'm wondering, because we've already talked about how this was going to be coming to council by the end of the year, are we doing something, because we're getting ready to have this application and everyone's going to apply to do this, and then we're going to see a bunch of projects come through that don't meet our goals. When will we see the set aside or any action?
When you
on
approve
vouchers?
this tonight?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And one other thing I would just like to ask, okay, if you, even with the vouchers, say for instance, you have people that basically, because the developer, whoever will not accept that because it's a lesser amount, the occupant has they can't actually pay the overage themselves, right? Or do you look at basically, does that take them out of the 33%, part of their income? How does that work?
Well, I think if you have a voucher, you have to pay a third of your
Yeah,
income.
you have to pay that anyway.
You have to pay a third of your income if you have a voucher. And then the voucher
Right.
covers the gap between your
Yes.
income and the, whatever that fair market rate.
Yes,
You know,
but suppose it's.
can you go
over-
above that
Yes,
33%?
exactly.
You're not supposed to.
That's what I'm saying, yeah, but they're not supposed to, but can they? Because some people may have.
They'll lose their voucher.
Yeah.
They'll lose the voucher,
Yeah,
okay.
because that means you can afford more.
Okay, so
than-
that's what I wanted to know.
It
Okay.
strikes me that perhaps what we need to do is a little reconnaissance, looking back at some projects, making some calls. How's it going with your will accept? Are you accepting? Do you have any currently? And then again, with this, after we approve it and whatever developments come after it or applications, because we don't really know.
Right. And the point has been made to me, and I'm not trying to divert us down another road, but that there are people with very low income who don't have vouchers that also need units too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that you might have low income and you qualify for the rent of the unit, and you may not have a voucher. So that's another population that may be being
Right.
reached. It's
And-
not,
And Sasha, say for instance, even if, like you said, they'll go over that 33%, but suppose, can they accept gifts, like anything, if you buy something or whatever? Suppose they have a mother or aunt that says, I'll pay the extra, which doesn't affect them as far as their percent.
You'll need to be very careful with that too, because after a certain period of time, it gets attributed as income.
Yeah, after a threshold of dollars. That's a tax law.
But the gifts are not.
Yes,
I think your
ma'am.
landlords are
ma'am.
looking for documentation of income and the vouchers.
And we're
I don't
getting
think they're gonna
really
get
into the
No, I was just
weeds
trying to
here,
find
but
a way that
yeah.
people can get, I was trying to find a way that some of these people can get into units that they would like to have, but the developer will not accept certain things. But I think they may want to consider the gift situation, if that's an option, to get people in and use the vouchers, because.
Well, that might be up to their family, right?
And
But we
that's-
wouldn't make that a policy.
No.
And that's a HUD thing too.
Yeah.
So when can we
That's a HUD
expect?
requirement.
When can
That
we-
is not accepted after a period of time.
Okay.
When will we see what voucher set-asides looks like?
Next year, this says spring and summer, which
Just making
is
sure.
a little scary to me, but, because we have Luigi policy we want to get to. It's probably the next thing.
Are
on our
you saying that
docket.
it's scary because it's the timeline?
Yeah.
Just that's fast?
There's just a lot on the,
There's
you
a
know, there's a
lot.
lot on this list. I
Yeah.
think the Luigi
Okay.
policy really needs some work, probably sooner
Again.
than, and which could also address this same issue as well.
Yep. But luckily, we have you.
Okay.
Thank you.
We need a motion.
Want me to make it?
Yeah.
I move to adopt a resolution authorizing recommended revisions to the Housing Trust Fund policy prior to initiating the fiscal year 2022-2023 funding cycle.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. If there aren't any other questions for Sasha, we have one person signed up to speak for this item. And that is Jonathan Wainscott.
Hi, I wasn't planning on speaking on this, but I just noticed, I guess it's always been out there, and I don't know why I didn't know this. We're spending $500,000 a year, $500,000 a year to help supply affordable housing. $500,000 a year.
Well,
No, I mean,
that's a regular
that's
occurring.
one line item. That's,
It's not all we're doing.
yeah.
But yes.
It's not already, and we also have $8 million in the whole trust fund. And we add $500,000 every year? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Supply and demand, of course, as often as Kim Roney will talk about solar panels. If we're going to talk about affordable housing, affordability is a function of supply and demand. And how much are we, not we, the city of Asheville, and not you, because this money isn't in your control or our control whatsoever. The Tourism Development Authority is collecting $46 million a year in hotel taxes to create the demand, which causes our lack of affordability. $500,000 a year versus $46 million and growing. That's not even with all the new hotels online that are still under construction. So we're going to reach $50 million a year? $50 million a year versus a half, and that's 1%. I'm not scolding you because we should spend more. This is like, how could we possibly spend more out of our coffers except to get more into our coffers by way of gaining control over the hotel tax? It's insane. That's just crazy. 50 million every year. Can you imagine what your job would be like if your inbox was a big pile of cash and your to-do list is go spend? I mean, I appreciate all the work that everybody's doing to try to supply at this point, but how are you ever going to do that? $46 to $50 million a year spent on telling people that ads at the US Open, how many million, was it $1.5 million to get our name put on a banner during the US Open? That's 3 years of Asheville City commitment to affordable housing. This is just so ridiculous. I feel so bad for all the people putting so much effort into this impossible Sisyphean. You got a picture of Sisyphus down on the elevator down there. You know, the dude pushing the rock up the hill. I mean, I feel so bad for all of the amount of effort that's going into this. How can you possibly counter that level of effort on demand?
Yeah, so we don't have anyone else to sign up to speak on that, on this, and I do think that
Can I say
we
two
should
things?
always be reminded of that challenge in our community, that the room tax is not controlled by this body or the commissioners, and goes to the Tourism Development Authority, and we've had discussions with them about whether or not they can use those funds for housing, at least workforce housing for folks who work in the tourism industry, and that is an ongoing conversation. Interestingly, though, the last check, 38% of our room tax collected in Buncombe County is from Airbnbs, and VRBO. So the growth is not so much in hotel rooms, but in our own housing stock, which is an issue that this city has tackled through zoning, and the county will be looking at in the next year where there are no regulations around short-term rental at all. So we got multiple things happening in our community that are affecting folks' ability to have access to housing.
Can we request an update on what is the legal standing process, inspection, whatever is happening with this county request for TDA or tourism lodging money to be?
About whether or not it can be
I
used for
heard that it was out
housing.
there, I heard it was being
Yeah.
studied, I never heard
Brad will-
whatever
Brad will
happened.
give us some information about where that's at. I'm fearing we're getting bad news on that front, but just as a
An update memo in the
spoiler
future would be
alert.
great.
Um,
The only other thing
Okay,
I was
so
going to
we-
say for the folks that were listening, like maybe this doesn't always come clear because we don't say it, but when we do take on these projects and with the Housing Trust Fund or something we subsidize, we actually are able to go back and verify that they are charging affordable rents. We can request their rent rolls. I get that question a lot, like, well, how do you know it's really affordable? How is it really happening? We do have that established. I assume that, as we navigate this with the voucher set aside, we'll do a similar thing, but just to assuage any concerns for those who are listening at home.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. So that concludes our printed agenda. Thank you, Sasha. We are trying to make the temperature lower in this room.
Is it menopause?
Okay, Maggie. Okay, so we're going to go back to our general public comment. We have already heard from Mr. Howell, and I'm going to continue through the list. I will tell you, for folks who haven't participated in our general public comment, this is the part of our agenda where we allow 3 minutes to speak for each speaker. We do not respond to each speaker. We do not ask questions. We just move through the list and allow each speaker 3 minutes to speak. I know there are some issues that folks are raising under our general public comment tonight, and there are opportunities outside of this meeting to continue those discussions. And I'm looking at the city manager because I'm not quite sure who or how some of this will be addressed. But just please know that we don't ask questions and engage in conversation. Also, we'd be here till midnight if we did that every time sometimes we're here till midnight anyway. So the next person to speak is Daniel Suber, and you'll tell me if I'm saying. And after.
See everybody today. I appreciate y'all very much. Thank you. Do you have anything else that you want to announce?
I can let Maggie take.
With the buttons here? Okay. I appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah, good to see everybody here. Great to see everybody here. Thank you for the service that you are providing to the community. Thank you for the roles that you play, especially if you play authentically and well, and especially if you're listening to the community, especially if you're ready to invest in community in a wholesome, long-term, innovative, thoughtful way, because the city of Asheville needs something that the city of Asheville needs a lot. We can play situations like everything's all good, but for anybody that really lives in the community here knows that there's a lot of things to be addressed, and that there are heroes in the community that are already working on those things. There are kind of people that are working to support what's going on, support the efforts that are already happening. I would love to see a concerted effort to bridge those connections. I would love to see $1 million go to each public housing neighborhood every year, and those public housing neighborhoods are included in the process of deciding how to spend that money. But I got a presentation to get to. I'm part of the Juneteenth of Asheville committee of Asheville. I've been working, volunteering. We got members of our group that's been vendors of this event that celebrates the release of the laws that brought people into slavery. You know what I'm saying? So we're here to celebrate this. We've been celebrating this stuff on and off since 2011 in the Hillcrest community. Some of y'all in this room have been to a Juneteenth event, and maybe you remember that I was there, or that we had members of the Hillcrest community being paid to provide services for the event, or volunteering out of their own heart because that's what they wanted to do, or they're donating their own money to their community because that's what they wanted to do. We saw that Juneteenth over the years, we're working with this, we saw that it brings community together, and we saw times of peace. Really through the community engagement effort to make sure that the community actually bought into it. We're actually able to create an event that invited other neighborhoods to come to that public housing neighborhood. That there were people all across the city from all kind of walks of life, maybe from city council members to, maybe someone that's addicted to drugs and they're trying to get off and they're trying to feed their family. Right? There's all kind of people that have attended this event. And it's something that's really, really important to the Black community here. And we want to make sure that it stays in community because we always appreciate city efforts to make things equitable and include people and things like that. I think it's important to look at those processes very carefully and well and think long-term how we can do that, engage in that. Now, surely I'm running over my time, but I wanted to go through some slides here. Our purpose is to celebrate the local and national history of Juneteenth in Asheville, history of the Black community as a whole, Black entrepreneurs, and Black community here. We're a group of individuals we've all worked on, participated in, attended, provided funds for, brought materials, supported, attended, or vended with Juneteenth of Asheville since 2011. It started in the Hillcrest community here in this recent history in 2011, and we think it wouldn't have been possible without the Women's Wellbeing and Development Foundation, especially Ethiopia Ewart and Nicole Heimbach, who at that time they were really involved in the Hillcrest neighborhood and were able to get the buy-in of community. So community did what they could to embrace it. It would not have been possible without that community support. So for years and years and years and years and years until 2020, we had Juneteenth of Asheville in Hillcrest. And it finally got so big for the neighborhood, we had to take it out. We collaborated with the city of Asheville to do it at MLK Association in 2021. At MLK Park. And then in 2022, finally, we were able to do it downtown with the city of Asheville.
Mr. Sieber, I hate to interrupt you, but so you've sent us this presentation. Are you speaking for a group of folks who are ceding their time to you? Yes. Okay. Okay, so raise your hand if you're not going to speak tonight and you're ceding your time to Mr. Sieber. I have 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. So please continue.
Yeah, so how much time do I have?
Wait, I'm sorry. What's the problem?
I was just saying, do we know the names that have seated time?
Yeah, I think,
On the sheet,
raise your hand if you're ceding your time again.
and your name.
And your name, say your
David.
name.
That's Daniel.
Okay? Okay, and then you're not ceding your time?
He
already spoke.
Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody else who's ceding their time? We need one more person. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
3 folks.
All right.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right,
Six
here we
more.
go. Maggie, you got the timing?
Thank y'all for making sure that we have enough time to speak about community and community involvement in an event that ended up becoming a national holiday after we had been celebrating it for so long. So we had celebrated it in, like I say, in Hillcrest until like 2020. And then finally, we were able to collaborate with the city of Asheville in 2021 when finally it was declared as a national holiday first by the city of Asheville. I wonder why. Like maybe there was some influence. Maybe we'd known there's a community support for this community involvement. Finally, after that, Joe Biden even announced it as a national holiday. Obviously, it's something that's relevant. So this event that we've been working for and putting our time into and going to communities and knocking door to door and talking to people and making sure that there's no violence and there's no peace, because through every single event that we've had, there were no fights. If there's anything, that we settled it immediately. And that's saying a lot for Black community here, where we know that there's violence in community, where we know that there's problems, that for somebody, when we see community efforts that really address things in an authentic way, I would love to see more support for it. Like I say, I appreciate everybody that supported. I appreciate the city of Asheville for funding us last year and providing us with in-kind support, especially like being able to use Pack Square Place and actually bring this downtown so we can expand it to entire Western North Carolina, anybody in the area that would come here. So we've been working on this really hard. We were glad, we were excited to be able to bring this. Now we had challenges and we had problems, but we did the best that we could. So our team consists of Daniel Suber, Tomo of Go Diva Photography, Paul Howell, Damian DJ Superman Smith, Al D. Green of Young Struggle, Daniel Young of Turk the Jerk Catering, Ray Mapp, Jadita Sconius. So what are the qualities that have made this important? We think that through the involvement of leaders in Hillcrest throughout the years, such as Mr. Elder, Johnny Hayes, that Hillcrest was ready to support such an event. In 2011, the Women's Wellbeing and Development Foundation began that current series. So they did that until about 2015. LEAF, the MLK Association, the Housing Authority of the City of Asheville, and Green Opportunities, we could find members of their groups at our events on a regular basis, and they usually provided funding or support in some way or another, even if they baked a cake or a pie and came, as I've seen Councilmember Kim Roney do. I don't know if I've ever seen her miss a Juneteenth. She maybe have been at every one. And, you know, as well as Shanika Smith, we've seen members that actually show up and to see this happening in Hillcrest. It was not a secret, though some people that may be new to Asheville may think that in 2020, that was the first Juneteenth celebration that happened here. And that's okay, but we're here to clear that and provide transparency. So in 2015, Damian DJ Superman Smith began to be the main coordinator for this event in Hillcrest, but he had been providing playground equipment from the very first one and continued to do so after that. 2017, in collaboration with Dwayne Barton in support of him and many others, Daniel Super began to coordinate this event with the support of the community in Hillcrest, though I volunteered at every single one except for maybe one. So the Hillcrest community always embraced this event, and every year we were able to do this peacefully, not necessarily the easiest thing to do, but this event grew bigger and bigger and bigger, so we could not contain it within a neighborhood anymore. And then we did it at MLK Park, and it was big there, and there were maybe thousands of people there, and we had it downtown, there were maybe thousands of people there throughout the day. So this is something that we have engaged in. We may not be perfect, but we have plenty of experience doing this and coordinating this, and through our members that we have connections throughout the city that can bring community buy-in, people that can actually walk into a public housing neighborhood and no gun or you know, no black outfit or anything like that. You don't have anybody protecting you. You walk through and you actually talk to people and say, hey, how you doing? What's going on with you? How's your day? What do you need? So we have people on our team that can do that. All right, so we talked, finally in 2020, Daniel Super teamed up with Thomas Boyd, a True Opportunist Promotion, to celebrate a Juneteenth celebration in Hillcrest, really because I was about to move from Hillcrest and I wanted to make sure Hillcrest still had it. So in 2021, Daniel Super and Thomas Boyd worked with Paul Howell, Tom Moe, and Daniel Young, and many others to start the beginnings of the Juneteenth of Asheville Committee. But they had been doing stuff in the neighborhoods. They had been doing stuff for these events. They had been putting in their time and their volunteer efforts. So these are people that were proven commitments. So we did our best. We coordinated that at MLK Park, very successful. Finally, working with the city of Asheville, that is a hassle. That is not the easiest thing to do. I know we everything, like maybe y'all sitting up here like everything's cool, but I know y'all probably got a pile of notes on your desk. Y'all probably got all kind of assignments. Y'all got all kind of things to do. And through those, and by that, indirectly, yes. So if I'm collaborating with the city of Asheville, then I have to abide by those things that y'all have to abide by. I have to be concerned about some of the things that y'all need to be concerned with. It's not the easiest thing. But we did our best and we worked through it. And we did that with the YMI as our fiscal sponsor for this year. And then last year we had my daddy taught me that as our fiscal sponsor. But so we did that successfully. And luckily so. But after the event's completion, we decided to go without True Opportunist Promotions, and we still wish Mr. Boyd well, but we just have some differences, and we decided it'd be better to go on in that way. But we still support him in his efforts. So the city of Asheville later announced this year that it had a new call for proposals to be submitted in order to manage this Juneteenth event on the behalf of the city of Asheville. So suddenly we needed to compete in order to put on this event. But we had been a part of it for its entire recent history. And with the support of various members, various nonprofits and groups and community organizations, we had been doing this for its entirety, its recent history. So the city of Asheville would not budge on this, maybe citing some type of laws or something that regulations, guidelines, which we understand, but that this put us in a bind in a certain way. We realized that this put Black community members and groups against each other to compete for something that belongs to the entire community. Even though we were just coordinating it, we were happy to even be able to do that. So we especially wanted to make sure that this didn't get put into hands outside of the community or by a group or a person, maybe well-meaning, but that was not Black or Black-centered. So we know, hopefully everybody here knows what Juneteenth even is, but it's a celebration of the news that enslaved people were freed. All right, we already mentioned making that a national holiday here in Asheville. Hopefully credentials are given to just all the people over the years that have just been working on this stuff, right? So we wondered, would it have been within the law and reasonable to work with the Juneteenth of Asheville community that we already have in place and find organizations to support them in what they're already doing and the trails that they've already blazed, help them to expand. How about doing something like that? This is what we were expecting or that we had hoped for, but that we realized maybe it was not the best or easiest thing to do. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Our request is that we have a face-to-face selection with the selection committee, and that the selection committee, that their identities be a public record, and that there be a reselection process where our community group actually has a chance to put together an accurate and adequate application for this, since if there must be a reselection process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'll play this as I move out. Y'all, if it'll even play.
Oh.
No, I probably won't. No hyperlinks. That's a lesson that me before I did not include them in this presentation. Thank y'all. May I have the next person?
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is Bernard West.
Good evening. I'm currently employed with a local business in the heart of downtown Asheville. I'm 22 and have lived in Asheville for 19 years. I stand before you to please ask that should David Moritz, the developer of the newly approved Aston Street development, seek out a city subsidy, you deny him any money from the city. It is unlikely that he will build some parking for the residents of the development and ensure an application process that prioritizes downtown workers. Therefore, you must deny him subsidy. David Morris has said this new 231 micro-unit housing development is meant to target downtown workers. I believe an application process that prioritizes the workers who hold jobs in the immediate downtown area is the best way to ensure that the housing gets into the hands of those who need it, not someone looking to have a small second home or another place to rent out to tourists. He told the Citizen Times in June that the development would come with shared laundry, kitchen, and lounge facilities. He says the development would bring desperately needed workforce housing to the area, but I find that comment to be a gross misrepresentation of what the workers of downtown need. We're not just a workforce that needs to be housed. We're real people with real lives who need to have our own space to come back to after a long day of work. When my friend leaves his restaurant job at 12 in the morning, should he have to come home and worry about whether or not there's going to be a machine available to wash his clothes, or have to worry about whether or not the communal kitchen space will be available? We're not just some workforce to be housed. We're people. People want a home that includes our own kitchen and a quiet place to kick our feet up. We want to know for certain that, yes, we will have clean clothes tomorrow. David Moritz called his idea an elegant solution to affordable housing. I think the idea is completely out of touch with the community it seeks to help. I ask that you deny him a city subsidy if he refuses to build parking for the development. With units that could house 2 people each, that leaves no place to park for the potential 662 residents of the building. The unit includes a total of 76 bike spaces, but it's unreasonable to think that not one person in the building will own a car or that 662 people are going to be riding bikes. This could lead to residents taking up the already very limited parking spaces that have been specifically designated for downtown workers. I'm all for encouraging public transportation, but let's show people why public transportation is a better option by investing in those systems, not by forcing it upon them. It's a simple solution to a simple problem. David Moritz needs to include parking in his development. If he refuses, the city government, rather than giving him a subsidy, should use that money to instead create a free shuttle service or parking garage for downtown workers. As a downtown worker, I believe the development is a complete mess and is grossly out of touch. Again, we're real people with real lives outside of our jobs, not just a workforce to be housed nearby until we're needed. I ask that should David Morris ask for a city subsidy, the city will deny his request unless he has a plan to prioritize downtown workers and ensure that parking will be built. Thank you.
Thank you. Then Jonathan Wainscott.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Wainscott. I just came down to be convivial this evening and bid adieu to 2022 and welcome the brand-new council. And, hi, Maggie. It was a pleasure to come to this swearing-in ceremony. I'm glad that you're allowing swearing now here in council. So I came to the swearing-in ceremony, and I was honored to be given a reserved seat in Miss Mosley's section. It was like being in first class without the snacks, but that's okay. It's still an honor. And I got a big old hug from Councilwoman Smith, which was fabulous. And I met Maggie Berthium-Ullman.
Well done.
Yeah, trying. And let's see, I just wanted to say, oh yeah, there's some history that was made. This was the first time in this election arrangement where we have a staggered every other year four-year term where 2 black candidates were elected in the same election cycle. The last time that happened was in 1989 when Gene Ellison joined Wilhelmina Bratton on council. And back then, the entire council was elected every 2 years. So you had 2 black candidates out of 7. And this year, you had 2 black candidates out of 3. So that more than doubled the accomplishments of that council. And you've been elected for 4 years. So that means you've more than quadrupled that. And they have an amazing history of having expanded democracy here in Asheville by bringing direct elections of the mayor to the public, whereas before we used to choose our mayor the way you choose vice mayor now, which was an election by city council. I appreciated the mayor's comments about the rigors of running a campaign and going through all of that. It's a lot more difficult to do when there's somebody else in the campaign, unlike the judges. So there's a little bit of an irony to talk about that and then be sworn in by a judge. No disrespect to that judge, just the agency that she's in is failing in democracy. And I appreciated Kim Roney talking about the democracy involved in the selection of the vice mayor, though I disagree. I think it would be better if the people chose that, and that, of course, would be solved by having an at-large member and, of course, districts. We have tree districts here in Asheville. We have tree districts, but we don't have voting districts. That's crazy. And there was one other thing I was going to say, but I couldn't remember. Oh, yes. And, of course, Vice Mayor Kilgore, welcome to that position. I appreciate that you allowed some space for the dissidents, I guess, in the community. Of course, I consider myself to be one. And then Ms. Mosley brought a dissident vote to that in keeping with the spirit of what you had just called for. So it was a fun evening. I look forward to 4 more years. Esther, I'm sure that you're just as delighted to have this engagement, and I'll just keep it to that.
When did we move to 4-year terms?
Like 1990.
I just gave the speech about how we don't ask questions of the speakers.
Sorry, but I'm so curious.
You broke the rules. So, yeah, and no swearing.
No swearing.
No swearing.
Touching my monitor.
I think that's a rule. It is, isn't it? Okay, well, we let that slip tonight. So we'll stick around after the meeting so that because I've got some other people signed up to speak, but I'm not sure if they're still here. So Mike Martinez, Kyle Davies.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Councilwomen. Thanks for having me. I'm here again to speak to you about live music being authorized at Hazel Robinson Amphitheater in Montford. I know I spoke to you last time, but wanted to keep pushing this. Since 2018, we've been working with the Montford Park Players to expand the utilization of the amphitheater and to bring more diverse crowds and cultural events to the space. It was about this time last year that it kind of caught wind of folks that sit in the city. We had a constructive meeting seemingly with DSD and real estate and Parks and Rec. In that meeting, we kind of talked about our involvement and our vision for the space. In response to that meeting, we were asked to provide more information about how we were in compliance with zoning and noise and the existing lease with the Montford Park Players. We did that. We submitted a 9-page response. Unfortunately, after that, it was soon after that the city's legal department issued an opinion letter to the Montford Park Players, basically halting concerts for this 2022 season that we would have had. Since that time, there was an outpouring of support. I know you all have received hundreds of emails, and we have a petition going from the Montford neighborhood. And we're basically here pushing this and continuing to push it on their behalf. Since that time, we've also followed up with department heads of legal and Parks and Rec and city manager's office, all who have said that they would, legal saying they would consider any proposal for us to look at utilizing the space and our vision to expand the utilization. Parks and Rec mentioned that they would listen to the will of council and the will of the community. And the city manager's office confirmed that concerts can resume per city council approval and under UDO 7-14-2, which is basically city authorized and co-sponsored events. But really, it's not about us wanting to do concerts in this space. It's really about what the community wants and the feedback we've heard from them. And it's a great community asset. So I mean, my question to the city is, why are we only doing Shakespeare in the Park? Why would the city not want to further utilize this amazing and unique asset to do very special things for the communities in which you serve? Through our vision and the work we've accomplished thus far, we've already paved the path, and we're respectfully asking for the city not to block it, but to walk down the path with us to all the amazing possibilities that are out there. We've developed the proposed operating terms that some of which we've included, including engaging with nonprofit organizations to help host benefit concerts and events to raise funds and awareness to support their organizations and their missions, to perform outreach to minority-owned businesses and BIPOC businesses and nonprofit organizations that are interested in vending and coming to the amphitheater and setting up booths and being involved, establishing a neighborhood volunteer program, reaching out to community colleges and high schools for marketing, promotions, and production positions. We really want this to happen, and we can't do it without your help. And seemingly this rests on your shoulders now. Thank you, and we look forward to continuing to push this along with you.
Thank you. Jackson Whitfield?
Good evening. I'm also here to speak about live music at Hazel Robinson Amphitheater. We know it's been a long night, a lot on the agenda. Thank you for your time. It's obviously near and dear to Kyle and I, but many others who have attended shows where community engagement, artistic creation, and bringing together different backgrounds has always been our main goal. But the result of achieving that goal was major economic impact to the tune of over $1 million to local businesses for our concert season last year, directly benefiting the Montfort Park players as well, and the city-owned amphitheater, most notably the paving of Jersey Street, which was a major safety hazard that was all due to our concerts funds that were raised. And we've heard people talk about affordable housing and the struggle of living in this town, where we had people who wanted to speak to the necessity of the jobs and how much they relied on it, but were actually busy this evening working second and third jobs and couldn't make it, but really left a void in their income when the concerts were canceled. Artists as well who had to miss the opportunity to have a gig last year. And also wanted to be here, but I have an excerpt from a letter co-signed by local musicians, John Stickley, Lindsay Pruitt, and Taylor Martin. And they have said that we've been blessed to attend concerts at Hazel Robinson Amphitheater, both as fans in the crowd and musicians on the stage. We tour nationally, as do many of our musical heroes that help put this town on the map, and all agree how special this natural amphitheater is. We strongly urge the city to allow concerts to continue. We have faith in this town, yet fear that wasting this opportunity is equivalent to tearing down an art museum. Vic Isley, president of Explore Asheville, also realizes the importance of live music to this town, and specifically the benefit to music at Hazel Robinson Amphitheater, and wrote a formal letter sharing support of Explore Asheville for Plugged In Productions continuing to mount shows at the amphitheater. Hazel Robinson Amphitheater is an underutilized city asset, and performance program there have helped activate the facility and importantly help support the Montfort Park players. We recognize the balance of neighborhood interests in city facilities and believe that if all parties work together collaboratively, there will be a successful way forward for more live performances at the venue and for the benefit of the venue and community. And it's that balance of the community that we're trying to juggle. Our entire concert series resulted in just one formal noise complaint, only one. And that was before we had even a chance to implement noise technology, really to truly understand where the decibels were hitting. So I feel like we have solutions to any perceived issues, and we really hope to have the chance to work forward with it.
Thank you. The last person signed up to speak tonight is David Copley. I'm saying that right?
Last one. Thanks, council, thanks for helping me. I'm a
Montford live in Montford neighborhood. My wife and I moved here about 12 years ago. We vacationed here a lot before that. Came here where we play outside all the time. We bicycle, hike, climb, paddle, and enjoy music. And the music is what brought us here. And attending some of the events at the amphitheater has been incredible. We actually went to the amphitheater this past weekend. They had a Charles Dickens Christmas Carol they did this weekend for a shortened version of it. But we had, I think this past year, we had attended some of the events, the concerts that the Plugged In Productions had and thoroughly enjoyed them. I think that we have a lot of friends that are in the music community, and they are using this venue to help support them. So we're not only are they bringing in acts that we may not have seen at some other venues in the area, they're supporting our local musicians, and they're certainly important as friends and neighbors. So I would really like everyone to think about this opportunity for Asheville and the Hazel Robinson Theater to support these events. So, thanks a lot. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Just checking, we don't have a closed session tonight. Good, okay. All right, so that concludes our meeting tonight. We can stay after a little bit to talk to folks around the Juneteenth selection issue. So with that, we are adjourned.